no. Okay, there's the dance.
There's the dance.
There's the dance.
The dance was getting distracted while I moved windows around on my computer. The dance is kind of like, stalled.
Windows on the
dance
computer,
stalled.
cats talking. Today is an interesting production day.
It is.
Yeah, today.
Hello, you Voidwalkers.
Hello.
I'm still moving windows around on my computer.
Dave, let's vaudeville this. Hello. We will never be in audio sync.
Nope.
No.
Unless it's
No, I'm not
completely
gonna do
accidental, and then as soon as we try to replicate it, will not happen.
Yeah. That's why, I'm Dave.
I'm Liz.
And I'm me. I almost forgot to
And
introduce
we
myself.
Are
The
Confabulators.
They-
Wait a second, we almost did it!
Almost.
We almost did it! Oh my
Almost.
god!
We almost did, but we will never quite. It sort of turned into a clusterfuck there at the end.
That's
We're all
great.
like, but we almost, and now we're all stalling out because we almost had it, and now we are completely lost.
Also, for you in the audience, if you hear that, that's Miles.
Miles has opinions today.
Yes, he does. You may remember
So-
him last year from the Miles alerts.
Oh yeah, that's right. I remember the Miles alerts.
The Miles
They were
alerts.
fantastic.
Yes.
By the way, what is a confabulator?
Oh, well, you
Miles?
should ask your local cat.
Miles?
Oh, well, I have a potato in a dog's
not-
body.
Not
sleeping.
quite cat,
Oh.
but
There's
says
neighborhood
meow.
kitties, but I don't think they want to say hi to me. Seamus wants to say hi to them. Also
I
to the
imagine
rats.
so.
Yeah, he really wants to sniff it when it's a dead rat, too. It's like, no,
Oh.
you are not sniffing the dead rat. Welcome to
Well.
urban living. We get all sorts of fun things.
I'm pretty
Probably
sure
shouldn't
Miles
be
found a mouse
surprised.
once and...
No.
I'm pretty sure Miles once found a mouse, I think it was Miles anyway, and left it on the floor for me in half. And I
Oh.
didn't see it before finding it
Ooh.
with
Ooh.
my foot.
Oh,
Yeah.
trauma!
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
our family's cat when I was a kid, when I was a kid, my mom came up one day into her bedroom to discover a shrew in her bed that we were
Oh.
like, that could only have come from the cat Albert. Yes, our family's cat's name was Albert.
Oh.
But here's the thing. To establish how capable our family all thought Albert was, including my sister, who was technically Albert's owner. My sister thought that maybe we all concluded that the shrew saw Albert and then died of a heart attack.
Mm.
And then Albert was like, "Hey, I take this upstairs." Because this cat had nothing in common with another Albert who's been mentioned in this podcast more than once because Resident Evil. No.
I was going to ask, is he more
This
of
was it.
was he more of an Albert, an Al, an Albie, or a Bert?
Well, we used to say that he and the golden retriever shared not a brain cell, one neuron.
Oh.
And I added that when the dog died, it went with her.
Oh.
That cat was dumb as shit, and I loved him.
Were they orange?
No! He was
Oh.
black and white.
Oh, tuxedo. Or tuxedo or
Yeah.
cow?
More cow.
More cow. Okay. Oh,
More cow.
I had a cow kitty once.
If memory serves. If memory serves, he was more cow. We did have an orange cat later who also was not bright, but Mello kind of had the personality of a golden retriever in a cat's body, which also
that is
fits with
lovely.
orange cats.
That is
But Albert was
beautiful.
not bright. I've literally watched Albert try to jump on the bed, and instead head first into the side of the bed.
Oh.
But yeah, so he brought us a shrew. None of us believed he killed it.
Uncoordination.
See, that's the thing that would worry me the most is they bring an animal and it's still alive.
Oh, we had friends from when I was in vaulting where one of their cats ended up getting a bell put on its neck because that cat was such a good hunter that it would catch things even with a bell, but it would catch them alive and then deposit them on family members' heads in the middle of the night. So imagine waking up in the middle of the night because a live mouse is running across your pillow.
Oh, fun!
Yeah.
Well, hey, you know what cats are particularly known for? Their longevity. Having 9 lives.
That got Liz.
I love it. Folks, if you aren't watching the video version of this podcast, Liz just nearly choked on her drink trying not to do a spit take into the computer.
That just broke me.
And if you are if you do want to see the video version, it's free on YouTube. Come check it out. Please check it out.
But can we also agree that in regards to longevity in cats, there's the saying 9 lives, and as a kid you think, oh, 9 lives, because cats are just that skilled. They have 9 lives. And then as you get, the older I've gotten, the more I've concluded the 9 lives is because otherwise cats would be extinct because they're dumb as shit.
Exactly.
So they need 9 lives just to make it through life.
Yes. We're talking me playing a game of Mario Brothers for the NES kind of lives.
I mean, I feel like, we're also talking me being in Lotro being like, let me take my dwarf character and see what happens if I jump off this cliff to the
Leroy Jenkins. I mean, I know that's WoW, but still, same rules apply.
Close enough. It's still an MMO. All right. So what's this I hear about longevity?
Oh, longevity of science fiction. Stories that have stood the test of time.
Dun, dun, dun.
You know how it goes.
Wow, I have such a spaz today. Okay.
Yeah. Well,
So what's the first thing, like, just when we say longevity in science fiction, I do want to ask, what is the very first thing, Ian, Dave, for either of you that just comes to mind? Just whatever it is in regards to science fiction.
Star Wars.
Ooh. We got specifics.
On a similar note, for me, it's probably particularly Gundam.
I knew you would say that.
I am very predictable.
Somehow I knew.
So like for me, when I say Star Wars, so the first movie came out in May 25, 1977, right? Hit the theaters, all that good stuff. Now, the reason that I say longevity is because George Lucas did it the same way that Kiss does for music. Anything and everything that could be monetized, created, merchandised, it was made and it was out there, kind of like, we see the joke in Spaceballs where Yogurt is running around showing off all the Spaceballs merch, right? Down to Spaceballs the flamethrower because it's, a kid's toy.
All the more hilarious knowing the deal that that Brooks made with Lucas regarding why Lucas allowed him to make Spaceballs and riff so much on Star Wars anyways.
Could you
I'm not familiar with this, actually.
So one of the conditions, and this is actually, I totally recommend everybody go watch the 99-year-old man 2-part documentary on HBO Max that is about Mel Brooks's life, because it's literally just so interesting. But when he made Star Wars, this is something I'd heard many years ago. One of the conditions to making Spaceballs, because he went to George Lucas, because you don't want to get sued, was no merchandising, which is part of why there is that whole gag about merchandising, but there is actually no official Spaceballs merchandise because that was a rule. Another rule apparently was that Lone Star, or the main protagonist, was not to look like Han Solo, which is why if you actually look at him, he's modeled after Indiana Jones.
Visually. Very funny.
Oh my god!
I like that.
I need to go. Crap. What's his name again? I've already forgotten his name. Crap.
Bill Pullman.
Lone Star. Oh no, not Pullman. Lone Star.
Oh yeah, the character's Lone. Yeah, that was Bill Pullman. Early career Bill Pullman.
Oh no, that part I remember. I just for my mind blanked on the word.
Oh, the character. Yep, that was Lone Star. So, but yes, yeah. One rule was no merchandising. God. And the other rule and I don't know if there were other ones, but the other one that I've heard, and maybe these are kind of rumors that have expanded, at least for the most part. But yeah, the other thing I've heard is that it was no Han Solo look-alike, or no modeling off Han Solo. So Lone Star is modeled visually. Lone Star looks more like Indiana Jones. So. But yeah, that's also why there's that whole gag about merchandising in there. Because, yeah, Star Wars and merchandising.
That's very funny. That makes that series of jokes all the better.
Mm-hmm. And so, continue. Yeah. That was a little sidetrack I had to throw in there.
Well, you know.
But yeah. So he made, like, Star Wars and had this whole thing where he just kept growing it, merchandising it, making shows, making Spaceballs or Star Wars the Christmas special, Spaceballs, the holiday special. I'm sorry, my apologies.
How dare
I? Yeah, Life Day, and the annoying Wookiee child whose name I forget and doesn't matter. And then you
also
had, like,
Wookiees wearing clothing, which leads you to ask, why is Chewbacca running around naked?
He's just doing his thing, hanging 10, if you will. So then we had, like,
he's got that bandolier.
Yeah, you had the TV shows, both live, which is like Ewoks, and animated, which is like droids. I think there's another Ewoks one.
Yep. I've seen the other Ewoks one.
There's one, I think, about Boba Fett that might have been, like, tied into droids or something like that.
No, that was that was the middle of the holiday special. That was it, which is amusing because it's presented. Right. It's presented, if I remember correctly, diegetically within that. So it's like, wait, is this a Are they watching a cartoon about something that happened to Luke and Han? Are they watching Luke and Han through some sort of magic television that's showing them things, but through the lens of Mobius-esque animation? Or what is going on?
They're watching Han drink.
I mean, I feel like you could define the holiday special could essentially be defined as a drug-induced fever dream.
Yeah.
Oh, God, that reminds me.
So they had, like, the books, right, and the video games, and they had the comics, and they had, then they had the prequels, and then they had more and more and more and more, and then Lucas sold to Marvel, and more and more and more. It just kept growing exponentially, like
Disney,
to Marvel or
to Disney. To Disney.
Yeah. He had done stuff Disney. He'd partnered with Marvel, I think, before, which is why you already had graphic novel stuff already existing. But Disney was the official, no longer Lucas's property.
Like they licensed to Marvel for years before licensing to Dark Horse. Like back in the 70s and 80s, Marvel had the comics license. Then in the 90s, it was Dark Horse with the license. And then when Disney bought the whole thing right out, since Disney had already owned Marvel by that point, and you probably just heard me fucking around with my headphones there, sorry folks, then it went back to being published by Marvel because Disney likes keeping everything in-house as much as possible.
Yeah. And before that, too, he already was licensing to Disney.
Yeah.
So, because that's why you had Star... To an extent, but I mean, Disney... You had, like, the most perfect example I can name is you had Star Wars at Disney parks before Disney owned Star Wars.
That is true, though I will also note, like Lucas was not a particular, like, I would not say there was a particular fealty to any one media megacorp, because, like, remember when Clone Wars first came on the scene, that was Cartoon Network, which was owned which was and is still technically a Warner Brothers joint. And now apparently going to become a Paramount joint.
Yeah, and no, and I'm not saying it
Boy.
was exclusive, just that Disney was already involved.
Yeah.
Disney was already one of the channels by which you were getting certain Star Wars
Yeah.
media even before they owned it. So it's sort of a
You know,
everyone had their hands in the pot until Disney owned the pot, and now it's Disney's pot.
Actually, that does remind me. I need to look up how the whole Disney MGM thing worked. It's like at that same park, like the Aliens, uh, like they have. Well, it's not an Aliens ride. It's just the Hollywood History ride, and one of the segments in there is Alien.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, sorry, I keep cutting things off there, but I kind of just want to get through this real quick because I know we're not really, to kind of pull the curtain back a little bit. We're not really trying to talk too much Star Wars on this show.
Yeah.
But when I think longevity, and I know this doesn't apply to all sci-fi in this regard, but this in particular it does. I think capitalism and corporate greed, because that's kind of what Star Wars has been for the longest time. Is that
well, there's something I would like to posit to you, Dave, about, like, again, not going to be all about Star Wars this episode or this show, but one thing that comes to mind, I want how, and Liz, you as well answer this. How much do y'all think contributing to that longevity is the fact that, like, at least with the original trilogy in particular, that thing is a mishmash of the various things George Lucas liked as a kid. Like, obviously, like, most folks know about, like, how it's a mix of, like, Flash Gordon serials and Kurosawa's Hidden Fortress. But one thing I was not aware of until recently, have either of you ever heard of the UK war picture, The Dam Busters, based on, I think, an actual operation by the British Air Force during World War II?
I have not.
If I've heard of it, I've forgotten it.
Okay, when you not during the show, obviously, but, like, go look on YouTube at some point for like the clip of it, or you can even find like write out comparison videos. The trench run, that entire segment is literally lifted from the Dam Busters.
Okay. Well, and that whole run, that whole section in the first movie, they looked a lot, and that lines up with the fact that in terms of reference, they were looking at a lot of World War II era footage of things like dogfights and all of that to kind of that there was a very intentional looking at historical sources,
and also, like, I think it's like, it's easier back then as a filmmaker to do this, to just, like, films are harder to get a hold of in the 70s. You don't have VHS at the like, VHS I think comes around in the late 70s, but it's expensive as hell. So it's not until, like, the 80s when video stores, like, really kind of kind of be the shoulder the financial burden of getting tapes into people's hands. Like, you couldn't really afford to get a bunch of VHS until, like, well into the 80s, because the costs of manufacture and everything were still pretty high and transferred. But, like, you could go down to the player, inexpensive enough. So you could go down to the video store, check out a bunch of movies for the weekend, watch them, bring them back, and just keep doing that. But, like, when Lucas and company were making films starting out in the 70s, you couldn't really do that, so they kind of had a little more free range to, like, crib from all of their favorite things. And there's a part of me that wonders, like, when you think of things, a lot of sci-fi, when you think of it as having longevity, and to an extent, I guess maybe I'm biasing it because we're thinking of things that have been so long lived, so obviously they're going to be decades old for this to us to be able to judge them from. But I do wonder to what degree, like, that kind of cribbing or that kind of homage or that being in conversation with wider works helps to make something feel like to give something the ability to be so much longer lived than, say, the Rise of Skywalker will.
Mm-hmm.
So this makes me weirdly, well, I guess not so weirdly, think of Quentin Tarantino, because people like his work, especially his earlier work. But dude just full on rips stuff from movies and shit that he loves and just does it but a second time. But he also likes to throw in the N-word and point to Samuel Jackson saying it's okay. So, you know,
we have opinions on Tarantino.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, but there's a lot of opinions about that guy. But Star Wars is to Tarantino what longevity and capitalism is to longevity and capitalism. They're both pretty intertwined. It's just that Star Wars is a franchise and Tarantino is a director who has the clout to do what he wants. But they're both longevity based.
Yeah. One is a type, essentially, versus the other is a product.
No.
And can't act.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he's convinced.
Act. He's
convinced
an awful actor.
He's so bad. He's so convinced he can act, and then will go rip on like seasoned quality actors publicly, and then be mad when the rest of the world is like, "You're being a dick. They're amazing."
Yeah, he's like Matthew Lillard and who was the guy who played the Joker in the recent Batman?
Not Joker.
Not
Riddler.
Joker. Riddler.
It was,
Riddler.
Paul Dano.
Dano,
like, but both of them are fantastic actors,
and also
like,
genuinely just like good people from like to hear people talk about them and everything. And he just comes out being like, I don't like it. And then the world gets mad at him and he's like, why are you all mad at me? And it's like, what? Don't dish it.
Because you're a
take it.
dick, Tarantino. That's why we're mad at you.
He's a dick and thinks he shits gold.
Yeah.
And also, like, I know
he really does.
I know they've patched things up since then, but like, you know, he's also not a particularly safe director to work for at times. Like, he got Uma Thurman badly injured on set during production of Kill Bill.
Really?
Oh yeah, that's
a man who needs a babysitter to tell him, no, don't do that. That is bad. You cannot make people do that.
Also,
just like George Lucas.
And also, like, it. Okay. I know we're sort of off topic, but I just need to ask this one thing before we get back on topic. Is it me, or is it kind of conceited as fuck to go, I only want to make 10 movies, so I have to be sparing about what I choose to be my 10th and final movie?
I look at him and just go, fucking just make 10 movies, then why are you making such a big deal about it?
Yeah. It's like no one's imposed this limit on you. This is your...
No one cares!
Just make your fucking movies, man!
He's the only one who cares. He wants to be the last auteur. He wants to be the last like Hollywood director with his name saying presents, and he wants that degree of clout and what's it called, reputation, or whatever.
He lost that clout ages ago when it became he lost that clout after however many movies ago. It just was another Tarantino film.
Yeah,
I agree with you.
You know, it's like it's at this point it's a cult of personality.
Yeah,
that he's relying on, and it's a little bit like, how about make a good story and make a good movie and sell it on that?
I agree with you.
You know,
and it's not like he hasn't done that. Like, his output in like the 80s and 90s are still beloved by critics and audiences alike.
Yeah.
But so, longevity in science fiction.
Yeah. Let's get back on topic.
I do want to jump off what you said there, Dave, about the merchandising and everything, because that also in a lot of ways applies to Gundam as well. Though, interestingly enough, unlike Star Wars, where it's Lucas who was so much of the early driver of that, in Gundam, it emerges out of the necessities of getting the production funded, because producing an anime in Japan has been, is, and probably will continue to be kind of a financial hell. Like, just for a little glimpse into that. Like, for example, you know how in the US, if you make a show, if a place wants to run it, if they're not already financing it, they gotta buy the rights to the show, right?
Mm-hmm.
In Japan, that's not how that works. You have to buy your time slot. You don't actually make money on airing your show. So you have to rely on, you do have to rely on, one, getting financial sponsors for the production committee in the first place. Two, selling video copies of it afterward, because that will be one of your primary means of making your budget back afterwards. And three, merchandising. And in Gundam's case, as it was a robot anime in the 70s, the big backer of that was toy companies. So, and this is something that has long been, like, contrast with Lucas, who is very happy to go in on the merchandising train. Series co-creator, depending on how you want to regard the rest of the team at Sunrise's involvement in that. I think it's technically credited as a co-creation between Tomino and the studio collective synonym Hajime Yadate. But Tomino is infamously on record as kind of loathing the toy companies who help make the show possible, because they do not give a single shitting fuck about anything other than, is it doing the numbers? No, we don't want to fund this anymore. Or, okay, you're doing the show, we need you to put more fancy robot in so we can sell toy of fancy robot. So that is why, for example, like the original Gundam series has all of these kind of monster of the week type mobile suits, even though it's a more military focused kind of real, quote unquote, real robot show, is because sponsor demands are, we need these in there in order to sell toys. But in relation to the longevity of it, there's a wonderful quote. I don't have it in front of me, so I'll paraphrase it here. What Tomino loved to talk about in this regard is that a lot of folks think the thing that got Gundam kind of going was the toy sales, especially once Bandai came on as a sponsor partway through and started selling model kits. Because at first it was more traditional, like pre-assembled gimmicky action robot toys. And the thing he says, like, it wasn't the male fans and all the plastic model enthusiasts keeping the show afloat. Like, culturally speaking, what he contributes to being like the key foundation of Gundam's longevity was actually its early female fan base. He talked about how at the time, like, you actually had women in the audience actually coming to the recording studios during the production of the show to, like, see the voice actors and, like, hang out with them and try to talk to them and everything. And, like, when the movies were coming out, it was the female fans first in line. And, like, when you're talking about, like, the Japanese fandom scene, like, you're talking about these women all, like, starting up early fan fiction, early zines, and being this creative buoy that established it culturally even outside of the toy sales. Because, like, if memory serves, like, while Gundam was popular enough, it actually got its episode count docked towards the end. So they had to actually rewrite and contract the story a little bit in order to adjust for the fact that, like, the sponsors didn't want to sponsor the full run anymore. So I find that dynamic really fascinating between like being buoyed by merchandising that keeps it in the audience, but how much of it is also like, the natural audience affinity for something.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, and it points to, it's interesting. Friend who's studied fandom, bringing up the element of fandom actually being going beyond culture to companies using fandom, basically using fandom as a product.
Yep.
And essentially manufacturing fandom through creating product that is specifically about encouraging fandom. So, and it's something we see a lot. And it makes sense that coming out of, oh yeah, you have to pay for your own slot, so you have to make the cost back up in merchandising. It makes sense in sort of a logical progression that then, targeting, fandom being kind of the goal is building that following to create it. So it's interesting tie-in with the commodity of fandom.
Then you get like other tie-ins to things, stuff like guest spots in video games, for example, or you make a deal with a company like, say, for example, Funko, right? Which
I just said oboe instead of oh no.
Sinking. They're still sinking so far as I know.
That's
no shade to people who collect Funkos. I have some Funkos myself, and I think that's fine as long as
I have my little.
I think gave them to me. I think that things like Funkos are fine as long as you, as a buyer,
like a doll,
understand the cost of it and get it because you want it, and because you're like a super fan of it, and you're like, yeah, I got like some spare money that I can be like, yeah, I'll get this, and this is going to be cool, rather than like somebody who values it in the same way that people did Beanie Babies, or the current trend that probably has faded, the Labubus.
Oh yeah, Labubus are already dying.
Yeah, things like that, where like you get it and you collect it because you're like, it's going to be super valuable someday. The thing about super value is that the value is made by the market itself in a strange way. To give another example,
I was just thinking, it now that you're describing it in this way you're describing it, it's one of those things that hadn't occurred to me before. But look at cryptocurrency.
Yeah, you got cryptos and NFTs.
Yeah, like NFTs most people... and cryptos. Yeah, where it's like there actually is no real monetary value. It's manufactured value.
Yeah, more so than anything else. Like that's a prime example of bald-faced manufactured value. It is all fake.
It's not fucking real. Meme coins. What the fuck are we doing, people?
And yeah, I agree. One lesson that I learned, and I didn't learn it the hard way, is I was starting to get into collecting playing cards, right? Like decks of cards, the classic 54 that people know. Like, I actually have some here, right? Like, these High Victorians from Theory 11, right? There's one that's called Pizza House. That's like, it even opens up like a pizza box.
Oh, right? That's amazing.
Oh, that's, I still love the one you got me with all the Tanuki.
Yeah. I got Liz and E playing cards for Christmas.
Mine's somewhere around. I think mine's over in another spot.
I mess with these roasters here whenever I'm doing professor work, whenever I'm in professor mode, because it kind of helps me focus. And this is where I mentioned this. I've got these. These are Cherry Casinos, right?
Aww.
This is number 107 of 144. And it's worth like a good amount of money.
Oh, wow.
But when you open it, you can see that it's got like gilding on it. And it's got like a fancy ace. there's nothing like too fancy about these cards, to be fair. Like if you were to look at like the pips and the faces and stuff like that, usually custom stuff like this have unique changes and stuff like that. But no, like it comes with its usual like jokers, double face, blank, and like there's nothing like truly special about it other than it's Cherry Casino and there was only 144. And they're Monte Carlos with the edging on them, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I got these for like $150. But the thing about it is the value of them is because I wanted them.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that they were cool, and so I purchased them. I saved up and I got them when I felt like I have a nice amount of money, I have a little to spare, I see this deal here, I'm gonna get them, right? And that's how I've collected playing cards. Is like I see some, I'm like, this looks really cool. I save some money, and when I think that I have a good moment where I can be like, yeah, I can throw a little cash around, I'll pick some up. There's a lot of decks that are still out there that I'm like, I really want that for my collection, but money is tight, and so I abstain. Things like that in gambling, please be careful. Yes. Please treat yourself kind.
Please don't go on Kalshi. Please, for your own sake.
Yeah. Objects come and go. Objects still exist. It's going to be out there somewhere unless they literally take every single copy of it and throw it into a landfill like they did with ET, which that didn't completely work anyway because people were still able to get copies of ET. Yep. I had a copy of ET back in 2002 for the Atari because one of my instructors when I was doing a degree in electronics and computer technology back then had an Atari 2600 and a bunch of cartridges that he's like, I don't have any use for this. Who wants it? And I said, gimme.
I mean, to point us back to again, Lucas tried to bury the Christmas special, and he almost succeeded, except then the internet happened. And you know what? I swear it's even, it is the opposite has happened.
Yeah.
Everybody and their cousin knows about the Christmas special at some extent.
It's everywhere. It's on YouTube. You could probably watch it on YouTube completely.
Like I said, the internet, I think, ruined. He almost succeeded at retconning it from society's mind, and then internet.
Yep.
And now we all have to know about what's his name's goon hologramming or whatnot.
Well, I mean, Life Day is now considered basically a canon part of the universe. So at this point, it's called Lucas. You actually created something that impacted the overall universal canon. Yeah. Life Day is actually like on the Star Wars Online, like the Knights of the Old Republic Online. It's hilarious because come Christmas season, it's Life Day season there.
Yep. But yeah, so isn't that great?
Oh,
Liz, what about you?
Yes.
What if you're? I don't know if you've finished E. If not, please continue by all means.
Oh, just real quick. I found the other Tamino comment where, like, if you've ever watched Gundam or peeked in on the Gundam fan community, you'll notice names of things, names of mobile suits, names of characters, and there was an interview once where some folks asked Tamino, just quote, "How does Mr. Tamino go about deciding these names?" And Tamino responded, "So it was largely a form of harassment that I gave the enemy mobile suits weird names like Gelgoog. They'd okay all the names that I thought. There's no way that name would pass, even if they're non-creatives." He thinks to himself. That's when I realized, oh, these people, the sponsors, and the producers on the committee from the sponsors, aren't watching the show. They just care about the toys selling. I mean, with Makuve's name, I really thought that it was a stretch. All of it passed, which means these people didn't read the scenario, didn't look at the storyboards, even if they'd come to the recordings, they aren't listening to anything. So that's where it started. And so because of that, like, a tradition of, like, Tamino names came about for characters and technology both in the series. And it eventually reaches a point, like, even it happens in non-Gundam or non-Tamino productions, like in Gundam 00, like in the aughts. He didn't work on that, but you have characters like a new returner, Revive Revival. These are actual names. I mean, I love this show, and I don't get me wrong, I think I legit love these names. Or my personal favorite Gundam 00 character name, Bring Stabity. I knew that would get you. That's a real name. Look on the screen. Look on the screen, audience.
That is a whole different level of.
That
is the epitome
wonderful.
Oh,
I love that so much. Like, Jesus, I wish I had that kind of control and money to make something like that. Oh my God.
Well, see,
I would get mad scientist with it.
Well, see, the trick there, Dave, is you just have to be the showrunner or the director, and then have producers who don't give a fuck. They just want the merchandise.
They just
sales.
want to see it making money.
Yeah,
yeah.
Sure, we'll call this guy McCuve. Sure.
Their answer is, as long as we're making money, we're happy.
you want to call that weird shark-faced spaceship the Browbo? Go ahead. Yes, Miles. Hello.
Even the categories.
Miles even has opinions about that name.
And I guess in a way that's another aspect of longevity in these things, is that, like, even something as ridiculous as that, something born out of just trolling the money people for your show, becomes this tradition within a work and carries on for literal decades. Like, Gundam comes out in 79 and for the original TV series, and Gundam 00 is like 2006, I want to say, off the top of my head. So, like, nearly 40 years later.
Jeez.
Is there a reason,
Wild.
sir, you're biting me? You can't see this.
Miles is feeling very opinionated.
Yes, he is.
All right, Liz. Liz, what about you?
So I mean, guess for longevity, there's two shows that come to mind. Star Trek, which for me was childhood. But more immediately, what really strikes me and has struck me more over the years is the somewhat phenomenon, I like to say, that is Doctor Who. Which is, I believe, considered the longest running science fiction series ever. Because it started in the 60s, in 63, with, An
Unearthly
William
Child.
Hartnell as... And with William Hartnell as the Doctor. And that, I remember when I got into the series, I realized, like, as I was looking at it, I'm like, okay, I've got some familiarity. I'd seen bits and pieces here. But when you realize that it kind of, the origin of the longevity of that series came out of a simple thing. William Hartnell was leaving, was going to stop, was basically leaving because he was getting older, and I believe it was for health reasons he chose to depart the series. Well, he played the Doctor. And so rather than writing him off or, just sort of, like, rather than anything I would have said that at the time was considered the conventional response, because we're not talking about, like they basically did go for recasting, but instead of just recasting and saying nothing, or just ending the show or doing something else, they basically went, okay, we're going to bring in regeneration. Now this Doctor basically is dying, but he doesn't die. He regenerates into another person. And in doing so, it's sort of, I feel like that's the catalyzing event for the show that becomes what we see, because it's been the way they've been able to keep, it's been one of the key ways they have kept the show going, because now it's called the actor. We can have an actor, and then when they're ready to go, then we do a regeneration, or when their contract is up, if they've only agreed to do X number of seasons, that we can regenerate. And in doing so, it's allowed for a level of reinvention. Because the other thing that has struck me, that in doing the reinvention, rather than always saying you have to act the exact same character, it's still the Doctor, but every time it's sort of a reinvention of the character. And they've leaned more and more into that when they sort of I kind of want to say rebooted, but also kind of resurrected the series in 2005 with Chris Eccleston, because at that point there'd been a gap, but they really resurrected that element of identity changing, and the show has leaned further and further into that to really look at the nature of identity. I mean, when they brought in Jodie Whittaker to play the first, for the they'd already at one point had female Time Lords and regenerations that had become female, but with Jodie Whittaker suddenly saying that this character isn't even defined by this strict masculine male identity, and that, the ages of these actors, to me, it's a fascinating look at the show's allowing of itself to reinvent itself. Now, over the years, there is an element of, in the more recent years, it sort of has leaned into an element where it's like, it's got some really good stuff. I haven't watched all of while Disney had that season. I watched the specials, because, of course, David Tennant was kind of, for me, was the one I really got into. So seeing him come back and bring the character back in a way as he played it, and I really loved what I saw of the new actor. I cannot remember his name exactly. Yeah, I can't remember. Like, what I saw of him, I really liked, because again, they've allowed those actors to make those regenerations their own. It's a level of opening, but I haven't seen it. I've not liked everything, because some of it is a little bit forced now in some of the story. And I think that had more to do with Disney being involved, because Disney was heavily backing the last few seasons. It's actually moving again. Who's hosting it?
I want to ask you something.
It's going back to RDJ.
Yeah.
Oh, you mean hosting the show? Oh, you mean platform host, not showrunner host. Okay.
Platform, but also because Disney was putting a lot of backing behind it, which was why it was also going on Disney Plus and all of that.
I forget, was Gava's tenure? What? I accidentally said RDJ. I mean Davies.
It's all right. It's a lot to keep track of.
Robert Downey Jr. in charge of
Russell T. Davies.
Yes.
Yeah. And
RTD,
Russell T. Davies,
yes.
And I think Stephen Moffat were very critical when the show resurrected to bringing it, kind of getting it into the public eye in a way that, with stories that were compelling. And I've always enjoyed it. I enjoy that, in the earlier seasons when they brought the show back, that, it's campy. It's a bit campy. It's a bit silly. But to me, what has helped it also hold up alongside of these actors is this sort of devotion that it's something kind of similar to Star Trek, in the sense of, we're going to be silly, we're going to be campy, but underneath of this is some really compelling examination of humanity. And I think that, especially, look at the 1960s Star Trek series. And, that show could be so campy, so over the top. I mean, all the gags about Shatner acting, all of that. But at the same time, you had these very compelling episodes, like, I can't remember the title of the episode, but where they're stalking a Romulan ship. And it's all very entrenched in the concept of submarine warfare and Cold War politics and all this. But it's seen through the lens of these guys in outer space, the Romulans, the Federation.
Balance of Terror.
Thank you. Yeah, Balance of Terror. But that episode is very excellent and very powerful.
Written by Paul Schneider, directed by Vincent McAvity, and original air date is December 15th, 1966.
Yeah. So, but I see a similar line in kind of, there's a parallel between both shows. They were different approaches to science fiction, but they both did something that I think resonated with their audiences, which was, and has helped them hold up even when, in terms of ratings and performance, they weren't necessarily doing well critically and had trouble. But it's that those universal conversations about humanity.
One thing
underneath of silly, campy things. I mean, the Daleks were basically early Daleks were trash cans with plungers on them.
Yep. Oh, the pepper pots.
I mean,
but one thing
I wanted to.
Oh,
you had a question,
I wanted
Dave?
to ask. Yeah,
I also got one as well that I think is an interesting comparison between the two.
And this ties into longevity. So as longevity occurs, oftentimes shows will be either pressured to do something new or will come up with something new because they think it's an interesting angle to take. With Doctor Who, I'm not much of a watcher. I've only seen like one episode, and I wasn't really captivated by it. But I do like follow on the outskirts, little bits and pieces that I hear. The most recent thing that I heard was that when they brought what's his name back,
Tennant,
Matt.
Matt. David Tennant. David Tennant.
David Tennant. Thank you. When they brought David Tennant back, now there's 2 doctors.
Yeah.
There's 2 Doctor Who's running around.
The bi-generation thing.
Oh, I mean,
they called it.
I want to know what you think about that. If you think maybe it's too far, if it's fine, if it's not far enough, if you think they're kind of jumping the shark a little bit.
Oh, they're definitely not jumping the shark. Because
what is your thoughts?
My take on it was the writing of it sometimes was a little forced. But not in a sense of, oh, this is too early. It was just some of the writing was a little bit more, maybe not the quality of writing that I was looking for. But, kind of one of those, I love what you're doing here, workshop it a little bit more. Because the dialogue feels a little off. And I will say that was an impression I had for that whole set of Christmas specials in large part. And that's some of the hazard of trying to revisit something that holds a lot of nostalgia for people. And I mean, Catherine Tate and David Tennant are 2 people who can come in and can hold their own, and their chemistry carries a lot. So it wasn't overly noticeable. Again, powerhouse actors who have wonderful on-screen chemistry and are great at making things that in some ways sound ridiculous sound completely natural. I mean, it was a funny thing that I remember hearing back with Star Wars of like actors looking at the scripts of the original Star Wars being like, nobody talks like this. Well, you don't think about that when you watch Star Wars. So it's like, because again, it fits within the realm. Now, those ones, there were bits and pieces that just felt a little bit more like the writing is maybe could have used a little bit more refinement. But in terms of what they were doing, I enjoyed bringing that depth in. If some of the earlier seasons were a little less, we're going to get into statements of certain things, I really loved that this went, why be careful? Identity as a person is a huge thing through that entire set of specials. You see it with the character of Donna's daughter. You see it with the Doctor. And it's really a culmination of essentially an identity storyline that's been building and building and building in more, they've been building more quietly. And then we're building a little more overtly, I think, with Jodie Whittaker. Because, of course, we've got the Doctor as a woman now. And that this was kind of taking that to fruition. But I do think it was, I liked seeing it. I really liked seeing it on screen. I liked it, again, if I had any criticism, it just came down to, it probably could have been a little better written in a few spots, but not to say that, oh, they didn't handle that well. I think they were really trying to be sensitive and also address things through a science fiction lens. And again, the thing we've seen over the years, I mean, Star Trek has done it, so many science fiction shows. Star Trek is just a big one that comes to mind of, again, we're going to talk about things that if you talked about them in the actual context of today are pretty heavy topics, and we're going to talk about them, and we're not going to shy away from them. We're just going to be doing it with characters, species, aliens, intergalactic politics. But y'all, this is what we're actually talking about.
Yeah.
Orville talking about gender identity through the nature of, here's an entire species that thought it was only males, and yet then they discovered that, hey, guess what? You do have women. And you've been hiding the fact that you do in fact have women because you literally are doing gender operations on them as infants. So it becomes, it's one of those, if the execution wasn't absolutely perfect in maybe like the dialogue could be a little stronger, I think it was still very well done. It was timely. It was a great culmination. I enjoyed, too, just the way that they David Tennant really was a special doctor. Popular as an actor, but there were levels of nuance that he really, truly brought to the character that I think they did a good job of paying homage to that, letting him get another round of closure for the character. Because he had probably what I would say is one of the most traumatic, I say traumatic within the storyline, he also had one of the most traumatic departures. I mean, his final line in End of Time Part 2 before the regeneration into Matt Smith is, I don't want to go. Which is, and this was kind of like...
That one got me so mad at the time. Yeah, messing up how I'm.
I wanted to cry because it was so.
It got me so bad. It was.
It was a very tragic ending to a character.
And it's like I love Matt Smith's run, but like that moment and like the year, like we only got 1 year with Eccleston. We got what, 3 with Tennant at that time, and it's like
you got 3 years with Tennant, with Eccleston.
And it's like,
I mean, almost all of them have had maybe 2, at most 4 years runs, but most of the time it's 2 or 3 year runs nowadays.
Even just 3 years with Tennant was like, it hit. You didn't want to see him go, and it's like even before he says the line you mentioned there, like that whole arc had been leading up to him knowing that his time is coming to an end, and like being avoidant about it, being in denial about it, trying to refuse it, trying to fight it, and at the very end, like the reason he has to regenerate is because of all the machinations that had been going on through that arc led to Donna's grandfather and the Doctor's friend Wilf getting stuck in this box where like it was going to flood with radiation and kill him. And the only way to get him out, it was engineered as such, you could only get it open safely by having someone go in and take the radiation dose instead. And the Doctor realizes he can't avoid it now because he can't let Wilf die. He's a friend, even if he wasn't a friend. He's like, using the phrase innocent bystander doesn't quite work because Wilf in that segment, like by the end of that story, Wilf is a hero. But like,
I love Wilf. I love that actor.
He is fantastic. I think he's passed now, sadly, if memory serves.
He was in those specials.
Oh, he was?
The recent special.
I'll have to check again.
He made an appearance. Yeah.
But so, like, the Doctor can't let him die, and he knows that he can take the hit. He'll live on as his next generation, but it means he'll be a literal new man when he does it. And so, like, you have that, like, yes, sweetheart, it is a very sad moment. Miles is apparently very opinionated.
Miles is being so expressive today.
Yes, he is. This is what happens when I sit on the chair instead of producing the show from the bed. Apparently. For folks who don't understand that, my cat gets very annoyed when I am in my computer chair instead of sitting on the bed with him. I don't know why this is. Mm-hmm. Anyhow, so, like, Liz, is tantrum the wrong word for what the Doctor goes through with it? Like,
I mean, he's going through stages of he's going through stages of grief, and a large portion is denial.
Yeah. It's like, I could do
he
so
spends a lot
many
of time in
more
the denial
things.
and avoidance. Yeah, avoidance and denial, and then what we see in that kind of that last special, and going into that last special, like the last few ones, but especially at the very end, is anger.
Yeah.
Is really that anger stage of, yeah, he's pissed. He's pissed and he's terrified.
Can I? Mm-hmm. I have one more question, mm-hmm. and I'll keep it brief.
Yeah.
Do you think that with David Tennant coming back, that spoils the way that his character went out?
I don't think so.
And the gravity of that?
Well, no. In fact, mm-hmm. I was going to say, if you don't mind my saying.
Yeah. Or actually, can I say this real quick?
Well, Sure.
Okay, so one thing as well, Dave, like I know you're not too well versed in Doctor Who. One thing I think we should point out too is multiple doctors appearing together is not actually unheard of. That is actually something that has been going on since near the start. There were actually 3 episodes, or actually I forget if they were episodes or full-on serials. The 3 doctors, the 5 doctors, and the 2 doctors in 72, 83, and 85 were
usually specials or multi-part mm-hmm. specials was when they would do those.
And in the comics and in the novels and especially in the audio plays, multiple doctors appearing even played by their actors is a fairly common event. Just the nature of being a time-traveling, space-traveling guy. Sometimes you kind of overlap yourself, it turns out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So even after they're dead, they will do that?
This is where it's the time traveling element. Mm-hmm. They usually, I know in the more recent ones, there's always usually some measure of they'll jump back to wherever that doctor who is maybe no longer the regular doctor in mm-hmm. terms of where the series canon is. They've shown, hey, that doctor's over here. And so you as a viewer kind of get an idea of, oh, this is where this is supposed to be falling in that doctor's storyline. Mm-hmm. And then they basically write kind of
timey-wimey, wibbly-wobbly explanations.
Yeah, timey-wimey explanations. There's one where it's like they're near something like a star and it causes an overlap or something because it happens to be the same thing, and that's how you get David Tennant and, oh gosh, I think like, one of the other doctors on screen together, the Matt Smith David Tennant special, mm-hmm. That one, and all that also introduced the War Doctor. Mm-hmm. So then you had John Hurt mm-hmm. as the War Doctor in there, but that one was again a whole thing of it's basically made. They basically, when they show David Tennant, he's off in England with Queen Elizabeth the First or whatever, the Virgin Queen, mm-hmm. But then if you like from the series and Tennant and from the specials there. He like right at the beginning of End of Time, he shows up and speaks to an Ood and he goes, I met Queen Elizabeth, you know what they called her? He makes all this sort of like this, and he's gone between the special right before it, Waters of mm-hmm. Mars, and for that one, Waters of Mars, he really says, I'm running away.
Yeah.
Like it ends with him basically running and saying, I'm getting away. And the next time you see him, there's a definite bringing him in of a pretty strong implication of time has passed.
He's been fucking around.
Running away hard. Yeah, he is running around the universe. And, he mentions Queen Elizabeth I, and then that's where they bring him up to. So they've intentionally written them into areas where they can define gaps that allow these crossovers to take place. And oftentimes we'll even say, you're not going to remember this later or mm-hmm. something, or it's something that your mind has sort of forgotten because it's the way the mind avoids the complication of crossing your own timeline.
Mm-hmm.
So.
And it makes it easier on the writers.
Yeah. It's very.
So.
It's almost very stage-like in the way they handle it. So there's a bit of we'll find openings to put this in. And then we just do it.
So you're saying that in the more recent time where he comes back, via regeneration, that is him traveling through time.
That
Not
is actually
via
completely
regeneration.
separate.
Yes.
That's what I'm talking about then.
The most recent one is a
regen.
Yeah, the crossover is of the actors appearing multiple times. That's time travel.
Yeah,
Jodie
I'm
Whittaker,
not talking about that.
Yeah, when Jodie Whittaker's character finally regenerates, she regenerates into the David Tennant Doctor. And that the series calls out as being unusual. The series straight up calls that out. Like, he literally, in the way Tennant plays it, he's going through this whole, wait a minute, this all feels familiar. Why is this me? It's sort of at that point, it's a question of, because that specific arc, Tennant's arc, was a lot of fighting fate, of people saying he will knock 3 times, and there's this whole, it's fate, your death is coming. The character is literally going, is there something I haven't done?
Also,
is the world saying I need? And by that point, they've brought in, and by that point, they've already introduced an element, some elements with prior regeneration, specifically with Capaldi's regeneration. They had introduced this element because Capaldi did not first appear in Doctor Who as the Doctor. He actually appeared as this Roman man in Pompeii before Pompeii gets volcanoed.
He is the
and
patriarch.
Then he rescues him.
Yeah, the patriarch of a family he saves, if memory serves.
Yeah, and that Donna convinces the Doctor to save. And the show actually finally acknowledges that, even though they never had to, but they chose to actually acknowledge it eventually, with Capaldi's Doctor saying, oh, on a subconscious level, I chose this face to remind myself that I can always try to save one. So they've already introduced an idea of there maybe being a little bit more behind the regenerations than it just being random, that maybe there's a subconscious influence taking place, but they don't introduce it so harshly as to say it's all this. It's just kind of there's maybe more going on at a subconscious level.
And sometimes
blah, blah, blah.
they also
so when Tennant comes back, it doesn't feel undermining as much as it feels like just... Like, it's still really powerful to watch that, and to see the newer one come back. To me, it felt like there's been so much time that it also doesn't feel like, oh, we're trying to force this. It's like we've had literal, 10 years between iterations. So,
and one thing I'd like to point out, too, is, they have lampshaded the nostalgia aspect a bit. I forget which special it was, but it ends with the Doctor meeting a future incarnation of himself, the Curator. If I think he calls himself the Curator at that point.
They sort of tease as, is it a cure? Yeah, it's a future of itself, but the actor is actually a previous actor from,
and that's where they kind of establish that possibility of sometimes you'll find yourself revisiting a face or two.
Yeah,
I've forgotten the line exactly. It's a little coy, a little lampshady, but it works.
Yeah.
It works in that moment.
And one of the things that's very characteristic of the series, I think, is this element of complexity that they don't always define. And this curiosity about complexity. And I think that's the key thing, is the show, and it's been underlying so much through the series that I think it's part of how viewers are maybe a little more accepting of this lack of explanation and what's going on, because it instead introduces this complexity for, again, wibbly wobbly, timey wimey stuff. It's an iconic line, and it's the Doctor literally trying to explain complexities of time travel to a human and realizing that there's no short way to explain the complexity of the world and his existence and his own existence that even he's trying to understand. And this is not even going into the whole time child thing from the Jodie Whittaker art.
Yeah, that wouldn't be written for a long time off.
Also, I have feelings on that. But you can pretty much ignore it. But yeah, the show is kind of written into its own core an element of curiosity and complexity that we don't always understand. And that being kind of the nature of the character is curious. The characters around him are curious, but they encounter things that don't always make sense.
And it fits with, I think, if I can segue this into an observation that occurred to me earlier when we were talking both Who and Trek, and the way they've been such long-lived franchises, but the way they've adapted over the years to the changing of television media. And that is like, for one, Doctor Who, like, I mean, we have the diegetic conceit. We have the as they would say it, the Watsonian conceits. That which exists in the world. Exegetically, Doyleistically, as in Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, it timey-wimey is there to allow the writers the space to, they want to tell the story they're telling without necessarily having to manage like 4, 5, coming on 6 decade, or now at 6 decades of continuity and lore that can be very self-contradictory at times. They want to tell the stories they want to tell, and even if they don't always match up in continuity, they still work thematically, emotionally, and pardon me, as Doctor Who stories. They are still legitimate Doctor Who stories, even if the canon gets convoluted to hell and back. And the thing that occurs to me about that, and it pairs well with Liz, you also bringing up Star Trek, because Star Trek has seen this shift in its format. When Doctor Who originally airs on the BBC, we are talking about in the form of long-running serials. I forget how long each individual episode is, but they
30
are
minutes.
30 minutes. So 30-minute episodes
Very
making
quick.
up multiple episode long serials.
Yeah.
That not
basically
like
nowadays you think of it like an arc in a show where it's like,
exactly.
oh yeah, the such and such arc. Yeah.
But then when Davies and company reboot it in the aughts, it shifts to a more modern episodic, with maybe one or two longer running bits and pieces throughout. But overall, it becomes an episodic hour-long television show. And in that same way, Star Trek also experiences this with shifting from, like, there are, of course, the overlapping lore episodes every now and then, but overall, Star Trek has been a fairly episodic series up until, like, around where Discovery hits, where it takes on the more prestige television format and tone and tenor and so forth. Like, you see a lot of critics, both critics and audience members talk about, like, you don't quite get the space in new Trek like you did with old Trek for, like, now it's a very tightly run 12 episode run, tight narrative, serialized narrative, versus having these 22 to 26 episode seasons that are episodic and getting to be all over the place with what the focus is, who are our focus characters for the episode. There's not necessarily a main character, as like I like Burnham, but like Burnham is at least in those early couple seasons, she is a shift away from the more dynamic, oh god, I have forgotten the terminology, but when you have like multiple members of a cast who are this wider focus, she is the main character of those first 2 or 3 seasons of Discovery before it kind of blossoms back out into being this more like encompassing of the side cast as more prominent in the narrative.
A little more ensemble than singular.
Ensemble, that's the term. Thank you. Oh God, wow. My brain. But so
I'm here every week.
what I'd like to kind of, I guess the point I'm getting at is, like, what role do you both think that for long running franchises like this, what role do you think shifting up the formula has in maintaining the longevity of a science fiction universe? And how, like, is it adaptation? Is it shedding what was part of the necessary form? What do you think?
If I may, well, in terms of Trek, because Trek I could think of, because Trek really struggled with that, actually. And when I'm thinking of that is, you had the show in the 60s, and then things went quiet after it was canceled for a while, and then the
Like
movies came in, and you had Next Generation and the movies, and that's when you started
technically
to see
movies come first. Technically,
movies, yeah,
the motion picture comes first, and then Next Generation actually starts at production, at like pre-production originally, as the intent was to be about the new characters from the motion picture, like Troy like Troy's character, for example.
But then they didn't.
Yeah.
Yeah, they carried over, but then they didn't actually carry over the characters. But it was the beginning of the reinvention when the series returned in the form of the motion picture. Also, an element of it, what it uniquely brought in was that all the main actors we knew from the original series had aged. And not just like they've aged a little bit, they'd all aged significantly. So you also saw, in essence, the stories grew up. The motion pictures are much more like akin to, we're going to take some of the stuff we did here, but we're diving deep into this now, and we're going to dive deeper, and we're going to use the medium as film. Now, of course, there's the, every other Star Trek film, all the odd numbers sucked and all the even numbers were great. That whole
I still
sort
think
of
the motion picture's
whatever.
fantastic. That is an interesting movie.
I have not seen it. It's on my list, but there's a few of the movies that I haven't seen, whereas like I have seen Wrath of Khan, Search for Spock, Voyage Home. Regardless of that and what's good and what's not good, it introduced a new element of revisiting these characters, but in a new context, because they are now aged. They are now kind of veterans within their own world. And then those motion pictures continuing to happen alongside you now starting to get Next Generation, an element of, these are coexisting within a world together. So that was really the expansion of the world. But jump aside from that, fast forward to post Voyager, there was a real gap in Star Trek. And then the real attempt to kind of revive it post Voyager, was, they were continuing to do the movies, because the movies were kind of becoming a way for these iconic, like Next Gen took over the movies as another form of, let's continue the story without having to make more of the show for Next Gen, whatever. But then you get Enterprise. Enterprise, which I remember the ads, and I remember thinking, this looks like an attempt to modernize Star Trek. And modernize in the way that TV was. And it was an attempt to be sexy by modern standards.
Oh, yeah.
You were getting steamy shots, questionable scenes with questionable closeness that doesn't really make sense for a more military environment, even if they're scientists and explorers. You get the whole decon room with your...
Yep.
Well,
yep, that's where I was going.
The with like half-naked decon people rubbing lotions on each other because this is apparently good for your health.
Yeah.
Oh, by the way, it was very much of, we're going to make this sexy and appealing. And that first season especially... And then I think the second season, by extension, they struggled with that.
That was Braga as producer, right?
I don't remember exactly. He was involved in so much over the years. But then the progression.
Sorry for interrupting. Like, as you mentioned that, like, part of that is like, I'm trying to remember if that is the producer who was kind of known for being a bit of a sex pest to the female cast.
I think so. I mean, I'm sure he would be involved. Right. I mean, either way, the bottom line is they were trying to create Trek in a way that fit with modern TV by that point. And the interesting thing watching that whole series is that
Hold on. I don't I don't know if I'm about to lose power here.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh.
That might be. Yeah. Audience, we're going to take a moment here.
Yeah.
And you know what? Let's pause this conversation and go to a quick break for the audience's sake. So, folks, give us a minute. We're going to pick up where we left off. Star Trek Enterprise.
Yep.
All right.
We're back, folks. Power's still on. We're good.
Hello.
We're good. Thank you for bearing with that little break.
Yep.
You know, we'd rather give y'all some warning rather than just have everything die in the middle of the episode and then us having to reverse engineer covering our asses.
Yes. The recording still would have kept going. I just didn't know if I was about to lose internet. So that was fun.
Mm-hmm. You would have lost the discussion, and all of us, because we record this remotely, folks.
Yep.
So, all right.
Wait, you mean you guys aren't here in the Conan O'Brien studio with me?
I wish. Oh.
Wait, am I not even an actual Tanuki?
I mean, if you have to ask.
I don't know why that's so funny to me, but it is.
Oh my god. Anyhow, Enterprise.
Enterprise. So what I was saying before we went on our little break here was that Enterprise kind of was this weird attempt at transition within the Star Trek franchise. But the interesting thing to me was that they were trying so hard to be like edgy, like modern TV, but still within the lens of extremely Enterprise, of being extremely Star Trek. And so what you end up with is the show doesn't really hit its stride until really by the third season. And the funny thing is because by then, I think they had changed some of the writers, some other production stuff, but it basically goes back to being like, fuck it, we're a Star Trek show. We're going to be a Star Trek show. And it was a very interesting of like them trying to force an idea when what actually worked was just do what you're good at.
Yeah.
And it ends up working with that. Unfortunately, it suffers the consequence of probably being a little too late. They still got a couple more seasons, but then when the show canceled, you have the notorious ending of Enterprise, which we will not discuss here. But it was interesting to me that there was that
you mean you don't like the cameo with Riker and Troy? And
I mean, I always love seeing Jonathan Frakes in anything, and Marina, and so, but it still was definitely one of those. Thank you. Yeah, it was definitely a forced ending, and not through any fault of their own. They really got hedged into the corner because like that and like the 2 episodes prior, because you get the sudden mirror universe episode and you suddenly realize, oh, they've had their foot cut off.
Yeah.
So all they can really do is fill a little bit of space, and then they have to come up with an ending. So, it's not an ideal situation. No. But what it just is interesting to me that its weakest is the times it was trying so hard to be like other TV, but it was still trying to be Star Trek, and it just didn't work. It was an element of these, you are not synthesizing these ideas together well. Whereas in contrast, you had Battlestar Galactica when the reboot series came out in 2004. That was very modernized, from highly modernized re-envisioning from what the original show was. But I think that one was much more of, we're going to take the idea of this and we're just going to do it in our way.
And interesting.
And so you ended up with something that is a much better product in that regard. We're not going to go into the writing issues and the seats of their pants and the filler episodes that are so clearly episodes where the authors and writers are spinning their wheels because they don't know what the fuck to do yet.
Well, there is just one writing thing I'd like to ask you about in that case. So, Battlestar Galactica, Ronald D. Moore from Deep Space Nine. And I believe he worked on Next Generation as well before that, before he was on Deep Space.
He was very involved in Star Trek, yeah.
So what I want to ask you then is, okay, we have been thus far talking about longevity strictly in the sense of a continuity, like longevity. We haven't touched on individual singular works and having longevity themselves. We've mostly been talking about franchises so far. But one thing I'd like to ask you, longevity, can we measure longevity in kind of like, imagine a dandelion getting ready to turn it, like it's in its puffball stage. Ronald D. Moore is one of those little seeds carried off on the winds out of Star Trek and then into Battlestar's reboot. What do we think about longevity in that way? Because like there is definitely, like I can't speak to it as much in the case of Battlestar because I have yet to see the Battlestar Galactica reboot. But like, what do you think about that kind of longevity, like not being a specific work, not being a franchise, but carrying on like in a way like a continuity. Like what is the continuity of writers and creatives in general going from one project to another, even if they're not considered part of the same work? And how does that, like, where does the longevity of the ideas in this case, I guess, is where I'm getting at. Speaking of flying by the seat of your pants with
which, trust me, Battlestar, I'm just going to say this right off. Battlestar has some, when it is on point, it is on point. It is like you are sucked in. But then between that are points where you can absolutely tell that the writers are trying to think of what's the next thing. And they don't have an idea, so they had to write something else so that they had an episode to put out there in the first, anyways.
So what you're saying is the counterbalance in the universe to, say, Babylon 5.
Yes, because they really were pantsing it, where Babylon 5 had a plan. Battlestar actually is one of the things people have talked about is they actually really didn't have a plan.
He was just good at having all the trap doors.
Yeah. So, okay, but back to your question.
Yes.
So longevity in terms of what, just to rephrase, make sure I'm understanding correctly, longevity in terms of more creators within the genre's kind of development as creators within the genre.
Yes, and then going off and doing other works, but carrying on. Like, obviously, like, you work on something a long time, you're taking something away from that with you as you go into the next phase. Whatever work it may be. Yeah. It's like DS9 already kind of started becoming more like DS9 is kind of famous or infamous, depending on where you fall in the Trek camps, about like becoming more serialized. The Dominion War storyline, for example, and then you carry that off into Battlestar Galactica, which is this much more serialized, much more like, I don't want to use the word serious, but I don't know what the actual term I want to use is. But yeah.
It's well, I mean, they both have a darkness in the storytelling. And yeah, you could say
quote unquote, I can live with this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I could see what you're saying there of like Battlestar, and when you consider Ronald D. Moore, of kind of the elements pulling from DS9 and then jumping over to Battlestar Galactica right away, I will tell you some of the very strong commonalities are these interworld politics. Politics is actually a big thing in Battlestar Galactica. Politics of military versus civilian, of military versus government, of military with government, and also, you know, rights as you get onto citizen rights in a disaster situation. So, because, but in that, you know, summed completely as saying Battlestar has some very clearly not political in the sense that they're trying to necessarily say something about our world politically, but that it delves into its own world politics, which is something that you also see in DS9. You know, the politics of its own world, you know, the Bajorans, the different factions on Bajor.
The Maquis, even. I mean,
the Maquis, yeah. They do it maybe at a little more softly than Battlestar does, but it makes sense in a progression. Again, Ronald D. Moore, very involved in DS9, then moving on to Battlestar, which I just accented very strangely. Battlestar.
I mean,
why I said it that.
I mean, that vaguely reminds me when we were talking about like earlier Shatner's performance style and OG Star.
Very Shatner moment.
Well, I mean, the thing I wanted to say, but I couldn't figure out where to get it in there was, do you know why he performs like he does?
I know I've heard it at some point, and I've probably forgotten it.
It's because he was a Shakespearean trained actor. It's like the conditioning from working in iambic pentameters so prominently.
Yeah. No, and that makes sense. And also just look at the era,
Mm-hmm.
Television was still pretty young,
Mm-hmm.
so you're getting a lot more people coming over. Not that you're not now, but there's still, television was young.
I mean, I think you're kind of onto something there. Like in those early days, you were drawing a lot more from stage trained actors because like the I don't think it's probably until the 70s or 80s you really start getting that crop of like on camera actors as a distinct and separate discipline from stage. What
Yeah.
Dave, you've got the acting background.
Yeah,
What would
you
you say there?
Yeah, I do. In regards to iambic pentameter
I mean,
and the way it showed.
not just that, but
So
like the issue of stage
stage versus film.
and the history
Right.
of that in American television production.
Yeah, and how with younger television, like in the 60s, hypothetically, you were drawing more on actors coming in from stage training versus actors coming in from
Yeah.
television training, per se.
It's very interesting. So first, I'm going to say that I think, in regards to acting and acting training, you ideally should learn stage first.
Yes.
Ideally, you start with breathing exercises, like literally an entire class, an entire term of nothing but breathing. Which they do that kind of thing over in England. We had something kind of like that in my program, but they also threw in other things too because they didn't want students to get bored because America.
That's so very American.
It is. And no shade in that regard per se. It's just a matter of like understanding that things like breathing takes patience, and it takes being able to quiet oneself and kind of just be in the moment, right? Which is a big part of acting, is being in the moment. If you're not in the moment, then you're not acting. You're not paying attention to your partner. You're not listening to them, receiving what energy they're giving you, and then responding to that energy. You're just not. Because you're elsewhere. Like your brain is floated off into space, floated off into Flappy Bird or whatever you want to put in there, right? So these things like breathing and stuff like that is very important. Learning movement, learning how to move with your body, learning different ways of movement. We got training in things like clowning. We got training in things like animal study. We got training in things like masks and stuff like that. And they're all different kinds of movement that you learn, and you get more aligned with your body. Also, in tandem with that, you start using your voice more. Like, I got trained in the Lesak way of voice work. And like, these things kind of come together, and they're often taught more for stage, because on stage, right, when you're performing, you have to be very big, you have to be very open, right, and you have to project your voice all the way to the back. You got to make it seem like the people in the furthest of the back are able to experience that scene just as well as the people who are front row, right? And if you're in a big place like, say, the Mark Taper Theater, Liz, you realize that theater is massive. It's bigger than a giant IMAX cinema. It's huge. And I know that because I saw Lynn Nottage's sweat there one time for a class trip, and it was awesome. They had the stage rotate, so there were two places that we got to see, not just one. It's phenomenal. But the thing about acting, is coming back to this, is with stage, you start loud.
Yeah.
You start big. You start open, right? It's much easier to have a director say, could you dial it down some? and bring it down, versus if you start in film where you're used to the camera and you're used to the camera being this close to you and the microphone being right here, and you are experiencing a moment that you know will look awesome on camera, and you're just like, I can't believe that happened. Whatever, right?
Yeah.
Like you have that moment, right? That little whisper, that little moment where it's just like barely any perceptible movement or anything like that. It works great on camera, but when you go to stage and you try that, not even the front row is going to be able to recognize what's going on. They're just going to think you're standing there.
Yeah.
And you're going to look stupid.
It's an element of exaggeration, but it's the weight that I see in coming when you see like stage actors in film. They do bring that gravity.
They really do. Like,
and
Dave, you first.
Oh, no, you go ahead. I was going to continue.
Okay.
But yeah, you go ahead.
I think that really plays into, like, we got on this track talking about Shatner, but, you know, other Trek actors have also been classically stage trained. Patrick Stewart is a Shakespearean trained actor, and I don't remember what Avery Brooks's specific theater training is, but I know he was primarily a theater actor before DS9, and that is largely is attributed to his boldness and his presence on scene. And Dave, I don't know how much familiarity you have with their performances on Next Generation, Deep Space Nine, but Liz, you can probably speak to this as well, that like what Dave talks about there with being able to go big. Like on theater, you're trained to be big for the audience in the back seats. And when you go to camera, like you said, you dial that down. But then I know, as you probably remember as well as I do, plenty of monologues, plenty of scenes where the directors give Stewart and Brooks their moments to go big on camera. And just how powerful those moments absolutely can be. For Stewart, like one of them that comes to mind is the interrogation and the torture at the hands of the Cardassians, for example, like when they're trying to do that Orwellian torture on him and mind break him into like,
there are 4 lights.
There are 4 lights, and
sorry, like it's such a meme now on the internet.
It's such a meme,
honestly.
But it's such a brilliant acting moment. The pathos that Stewart brings to bear there, and you can it's an entirely fictional moment, obviously because it's fictional television. But you can feel that pain, you can feel that anguish as he is in so much physical torture pain, because, like, we're not talking like, oh, science fiction-y, mind washing. No, they, like, whatever science fiction is in play at that moment, it's just new ways to make you feel intense amount of pain. So they are subjecting him to physical torment while they are just doing centuries practiced ways of like, there's 5 lights there, right?
Brainwashing. It's basic. Well, it's brainwashing, Pavlovian. I mean, the whole thing of there are 4 lights is that during that entire thing, and I'm going to fully say I haven't seen it, but I know enough of that specific episode, but I know enough about it that the core thing has been brought up more recently in the wake of what's happening in the real world of their part of the torture is, you know, he sees 5 lights. They're telling him there are 4 while they're torturing him.
And then when he talks about it at the end, or like he sticks to the actual number of lights there were, but by the end of it, he's seeing the number they want him to see.
Yeah, it's and that's where it's so very Orwellian of they're trying to tell him what to, they will try to tell you what you are seeing.
Yeah.
Believing what you see with your eyes versus what they tell you you're seeing. So, yeah. So, interestingly, too, I just want to add, too, that Avery Brooks and Patrick Stewart and Kate Mulgrew also was stage trained.
Oh, wow.
Too.
Yeah, I forgot
I was just looking up. She was, no, it's on her Wikipedia. She was accepted to the Stella Adler Conservatory of Acting at age 17. And she brings that same gravitas too, and I think is also why she has been she has really earned a space as, you know, iconic too, because she brings weight to that moment when she, you know, she maybe doesn't get the same types of monologues, but all of them are different, but she still, there is a weight to her character, and when she commands a room, she commands a room.
Yeah. And you see that with other actors as well, you know, like Anthony Hopkins, Christian Bale, Ian McKellen. Like, there's a lot of them who have been classically trained or stage trained, right?
Yeah.
You know, like Helen Mirren, Meryl Streep, right? Like, there's a big list. And you see in their performances when you know that they are trained from stage first, how they act and what choices they make, versus somebody who starts right off the bat in front of a camera, right? And that's no shade to people who start in front of the camera, right? Like, I started in front of the camera, but there's a massive difference between the two, because you'll see them make different choices and have different mannerisms of performance. And for me, I find that those who have done stage first are more compelling because of all the things that they've had to do. And most likely as well, all the stage work that they've had to learn, all the classical stuff, you know, they had to learn, not just like Shakespeare, but like Tartuffe and the Greek plays, and like various modern stage stuff, you know, like Angels in America, for example, is one. You got Fences, you've got Sweat, like there's a lot of them that are out there, and they're very like important things. So like, you know, when you go to a stage play, every performance is different. You could go to see the same show, same week, might be the next day or something like that, and the performances will be different.
And I love that about stage.
You know, there's something that occurs to me here. It's like, you know, we've focused so far this episode in longevity talking about television and film. And the commonality there is, of course, you know, our way of interfacing with these stories is it's not like prose novels where our interface is more direct with the character, be it either through an omniscient narrator, be it through third person perspectives that still kind of we have to do the work ourselves of getting into the mindset of the character as we read a story. And I'm trying to phrase this carefully because I don't want to say, oh, that means television's better at this, but I kind of want to dial more into like the mechanics of what produces longevity in a in an audiovisual format versus prose format. And it's like we've talked about writing a little bit, but like the thing I'm thinking is like with television and film and audio plays as well, what kind of helps the longevity, like establish some of the longevity, is the fact that like we're able to, through these performances, we are made to empathize with the characters in the way that we might empathize with the person standing next to us that we are working alongside, or just alongside long enough to get to know them. It's like, what do y'all think kind of like on that in regards to how longevity of a science fiction work is built?
It's an interesting question.
Yeah. I think longevity in part is the potency of the thing. You know, just thinking back on stage, right? Particularly Shakespeare, right? Shakespeare has lasted as long as it has for a very good reason. There's a lot of stories in there that he's done that a lot of people enjoy. Usually everybody can find one Shakespeare play that they really like.
Yeah.
Right? And sometimes
there's always one that resonates with you.
And sometimes they get remade. Oftentimes they'll get remade into different mediums. For example, 10 Things I Hate About You stems from a Shakespeare play, right? Mm-hmm. People love that movie. They do, right? Mm-hmm.
Look at how many different variations we've seen in the world of like Hamlet, too.
Yeah.
I mean, Hamlet has been retold in many, many ways. I mean, come on, people. The Lion King is Hamlet in the savannah with lions.
Yeah. Look at Kenneth Branagh's series of movies. Mm-hmm. Look at the people that he's gotten to play them, like big names. You had like Keanu Reeves. You had I think Kate Winslet was in one. Denzel Washington. You get like all sorts of big, like there's very few of Branagh's movies that I don't like that were Shakespeare. One being Titus Andronicus. Well. Yeah. Emma Thompson was, yep. And it's a shame that I didn't like Andronicus because I love the stage play, but the movie was awful. I don't know what he was doing there, but that's beside the point. The point is that like there's a lot of things in those classics that people just know and can always find room for to enjoy.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, and I think that speaks to elements of, there is the longevity of, a series, a franchise, but, there are also stories that we just continue to tell in new mediums, in new ways, in new explorations. And Shakespeare very much is like the quintessential of how many times has this been retold. I mean, it's taught in schools. That's how how critical it is to storytelling. I mean, I think all of us could compare notes on what Shakespeare plays we had to read in high school, that we had to study in high school, or in case of one of my English classes, we were going to, but apparently our class was that one English class, we were all so somehow inept that the teacher adjusted her entire lesson plan and took out half of the stuff. I don't know. That class was weird. Okay, I'm going to cite that this was in high school, English teacher. We had a couple students in our class who I swore made it their mission to make things miserable for this teacher so that she couldn't get through her curriculum the way she ideally wanted to. But she sometimes kind of took it out on all of us and went, because of you all, I'm changing my entire curriculum. And it was a little like, okay, it's not all of us. It's a few students who are basically being brats, to put it simply, because they don't want to do the work. Interestingly enough, that teacher quit teaching the next year.
That's a shame.
Yeah, it's a shame. And it was a shame to watch from this perspective of I did have some issues with her curriculum, because I think it was like, you're asking a lot from high school seniors, in a single year when we've also got a shit ton coming from our other classes. Like, be reasonable in how much work you expect us to put in at home, because we all are supposed to like have health and life and sleep. First all-nighter I ever pulled was in high school, and it was for that class, actually.
Wow.
But the sign of how a few can ruin it for the many. Because it was really just a few students who made that teacher miserable. So that's all an aside. Yeah. But just, again, Shakespeare's taught in high schools. I was studying Shakespeare my freshman year. It's quintessential, essentially, in our understanding of stories and themes within stories. And I think the timeless element of stories.
Yeah.
I mean, again.
And so, like, to kind of bring it all back,
yep.
I would say for you Voidwalkers out there, if you've never seen a stage play in your life, I implore you, find a few. Don't just go, I'm going to only do one and then that's it. You might not like it. Find a few, right? Give yourself like 3 chances at it, and go to different ones and give them a shot. Usually there's like smaller ones or like independent ones. I know that the school for which I work, they have a theater, and it's a 99-seat theater. And you can go there and see whatever's playing.
It's a black box, but it's pretty nice.
You can, yeah, it's a black box type of theater. And they always have a listing of what plays or musicals or anything like that is going to be put on, and what times and what days. So you know when, and you can just go and check them out and, you know, support the fine arts. Like,
even local community theaters, you know, are worth looking into, because you get people who, you know, are just as talented, just didn't pursue these things as professional careers. Like I remember, if you've got colleges and universities, I remember going to my brother when he was in college, when he was an undergrad, they did a production of Into the Woods, at the university's theater. And, you know, it was a fantastic production, you know, and this was not like something big, but they did it in this theater. Some of the actors within it were locals from within the community, weren't even students, were just other people around the community, because this was in a tiny little, like, formerly coal mining town, you know, but it was a fantastic production.
Yeah.
You know, and basically put on by students and community members.
And there's also Shakespeare in the Park. If you want to experience Shakespeare, I know it exists in LA. I think it exists in other places too. But Shakespeare in the Park is generally free. They'll have things like merchandise and food for sale and stuff like that. But like, you can just go and it's like in a park. You bring yourself like a blanket or a seat or whatever, and like you come on in and you watch these talented and skilled performers putting on Shakespeare.
Dave, do you remember what the name of the one in Richmond is? I'm drawing a blank on it.
I don't. Sadly,
it's kind of, I'll find it later. But like if any of you audience members are ever around the Richmond, Virginia area, there's a Shakespeare in the Park type venue that is absolutely fantastic. A teacher that Dave and I shared at the college he teaches for took us there as a field trip for one of our acting classes, and it was
that was it was like the Firehouse.
No, it wasn't Firehouse,
something like that. It was something like that.
Interesting.
I can't remember exactly.
Agecroft.
Oh, Agecroft.
Agecroft Hall and Gardens. I believe
there's a couple of theaters in the Richmond area that I've been to because of that instructor. So
they are getting ready to put on the Scottish play starting later this month and running through mid-April.
Oh, nice. But yeah, getting back to it, there's something to be said about people who have started in stage versus people who have started in film. And it's always fascinating to just watch those people work when they're working. Yeah. Because oftentimes they'll make it look effortless, which means that they have put a ton of effort in, and you're seeing the fruits of that labor. It's awesome. And you get this, like, another really good one. And I know we're deviating here.
I do have a segue for us, by the way.
I'm going to mention this, and then we can like get back to Sci-Fi. The Princess Bride is chock full of stage play performance. If you don't have the desire to go see stage for some reason, watch that movie. All those performances, aside from Andre the Giant, to be fair to him, he's a pro wrestler, which is a different kind of stage play. But the rest of them have pretty much started with stage. They've been staged.
Mandy fucking Patinkin.
Mannerisms. Oh. Yeah. Wallace Shaw.
Carrie
right?
Elways.
Like, yeah.
Go look at that, and then look at any of those actors in anything else they have done. Television.
I don't remember Buttercup's
movies,
actress's
I
name.
mean, Robin Wright, I think. Robin Wright, I think is her name. But any of them in other things they've done.
Yes.
Because they've done, I mean, Mandy Patinkin. And then, like, for me, I also think of him as Gideon, Criminal Minds. Look at the level of nuance and presence he brings to a very, very different character, but equally brings it to Inigo Montoya and everything. And you look at him and you're sort of sitting there going, this is astounding to look at these two very different performances by the same person still walking into a room and owning the screen. Cary Elwes. I mean, even in Saw. And he's in the first Saw.
I keep forgetting that.
Like, I know. When I realized it was him, it was like, what the fuck? But again, presence. Or, conversely, look at him, Princess Bride, look him over in Men in Tights. In a Mel Brooks film. And another comedy, but then still walks in and has all the charisma and presence. And talk about another thing.
Even on Psych, his guest appearances on Psych, he is bringing that as, God, I can't remember his character's name now. Damn. He's the gentleman thief type.
I never saw Psych, so I can't answer that. Sorry. But even also Humperdinck, and I cannot remember that actor's name. Fright Night. He's also the voice of Jack Skellington in Nightmare Before Christmas. And in a lot of iterations where Jack has appeared, because I think he also voiced him for Kingdom Hearts too. So, and even just listening from a vocal perspective, he's also the first Chucky film. Despero.
He plays Despero. There we go. Sorry.
Yeah. But yeah, these comparatives of look at these people and then look at them in something that's distinctly television, distinctly film, and you go, oh.
Yeah. They command presence because they were trained to.
Yeah.
Like, it's magic.
Anyway, and it's also, I have one thing to add to that, Dave, which is, it's an ability that actually I would say not just limited to stage acting, but any kind of stage performance. And by that, one perfect example I want to cite is professional singers, or even just singers in general, opera, singing. The example I happened to grow up going to a church that had a massive, very extensive music program and very high quality music program. The director had a PhD in basically conducting or something like that. I don't know what his PhD was exactly, but hey, he had the PhD. It was, so when he was introduced, it was Dr. So-and-so. He would bring in professional musicians, but we also had many professional musicians that were members of the congregation and had been for a long time. Among them, one in particular was a soloist, professional, basically opera singer. But and so there were many times where, she might do a solo performance, or like if we did our big holiday lessons and carols, she would have a solo in it for many, this, because again, professional opera singer. She had a wonderful voice. But there was something interesting that I think it was my mother who pointed out that was utterly fascinating. So this woman once, when my mom used to lead a Bible study, and this woman came to that, it was a separate thing. But she was going to do a song over there at that. And they went into the church and they realized, oh, we have to sound check for her. She's, does she need a microphone? And this woman in the middle of this just big auditorium where everybody was supposed to meet, because they used the same auditorium that the congregation at this church used, basically in their big, hall. Just, my mom goes, she just, like, belted out a note. Teeny tiny little woman. And then just beautiful, just operatic notes. And was like, I'll be fine. The ability to project from this teeny tiny body and be like, yeah, you don't need to mic me, I'll be fine. Because I can fill this entire room without any technology. She had that skill. She could do that at our church's sanctuary. The same thing. But she was also part of the choir. And if the choir was singing a part where she was not performing like a separate part that was like a solo on top of it, like a singular solo on top of the choir singing, if she was singing as part of the choir, she blended in perfectly. You did not pick her voice out. And so it's something else from stage of the ability to
blend into the crowd.
I don't want to say fluctuate. Blend in, but it's that sensitivity to the surrounding. It's really, it's listening.
Adaptability?
It's listening. Adaptability, listening. But again, it comes back to this sort of active listening that goes beyond just hearing things with your ears. It's awareness of the surrounding, of when to be big, how to be big and still be small, and when to dial back to small. Like when to be small and part of the, like, say, small as part of the choir, but still big because it's time for the choir to be big. Mm-hmm. And that is that is something that I think you see very much that comes out of just about any kind of stage performance training, of when to be in the ensemble, when to be stand apart from it, when to be big within it, when to be small within it, and adjust accordingly in your performance.
You know, there's a topic we could go into on another day on like a special or something. But I would love.
We've got so many rabbit holes from this episode recording.
I would love to dig into at some point, like if there is like a collectivist versus individualist dichotomy in a way between stage and like in the process and the procedures of stage versus on camera acting. But aside from that, since we've been talking about stage so long, there's another kind of longevity that we haven't touched on, and stage provides a perfect segue for that. Guys, do you know where the word robot comes from?
Oh, I had heard about this recently.
Yes, probably from me.
I feel like I probably heard about it. I was going to say, I feel like I heard about it, and it was from you, E.
Yes, and that...
I don't remember.
That is the classic Czech stage play, Rossum's Universal Robots. And, you know, Rossum's itself, a singular work, is not... like, its longevity is outpaced by its contribution. Instead, like as a work itself, its own longevity has not been as widespread as its contribution to the genre as a whole in giving us the word robot. I forget the exact etymology, but robot itself is not an original Czech word. It is a derivation of a Czech word that effectively means like forced labor, slave, forced work. And
sounds like robot.
Yeah. And also a theme that shows up a lot when in science fiction in the discussion of robots.
Exactly. And like that kind of longevity fascinates me, that even though if I can personalize works for a moment, even though you might not be remembered yourself by everyone, you have contributed something to the culture that everyone fucking knows. And that fascinates me and is amazing to me.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you say that, and the first thing I think of, H.G. Wells.
Mm-hmm.
I would say, some of the, not the oldest, but frankly, some of the oldest very science fiction stories. I mean,
War of the Worlds, The Time Machine, 20,000 Leagues on the Sea is Wells, correct? I'm not misremembering that? Okay.
I think so.
But
I have yet to read the unabridged version. I read the abridged back in elementary school. But it was
truly early science fiction, like some of the oldest one. But I mean, when H.G. Wells wrote War of the Worlds, do any of us really think that he was thinking about the legacy that story would have?
Yes, of course. He was picturing like 150
Tom Cruise.
So on. Oh no, he wasn't thinking about Tom Cruise. He was thinking about Ice Cube sitting in front of a camera during pandemic times. Like, one day that man is going to act my story in a way untold by history.
One day, this future company will be promoted by my work.
I just finished watching Attack on Titan. Now you got me thinking he was having Eren Yeager visions of the future.
do I really want to publish this story now?
Let's just not, like, we'll leave that. But just when you think about, and it was interesting. I remember listening to War of the Worlds. It was a 11 hour listen. Mm-hmm. And so I checked it out from my library app at the time when I was living temporarily in West Lafayette, Indiana, and which was about a 10 to 12 hour drive, depending on, speed and breaks and traffic, from where I lived in Northern Virginia. And I was coming back home for, I believe it was a friend's wedding. Yeah, it was a mutual friend of ours. I was actually driving back home. Yeah, I think I was driving back home for our dear friend who guested last season, Rachel's wedding, so that I would have my car with me. But I checked out the book, the audiobook, in order to listen to on the drive, because I'm like, oh, this is perfect. It's about the same length as my drive, so I can listen to the entire book in basically a day, because I did that whole damn drive by myself in one day. That was a lot. I'm just gonna say that was a lot. But what fascinated me listening to it, and it's fascinating me with some older literature, is the moments when I'm listening going, I recognize this, and not, oh, this is, and it's recognizing in that I recognize this in my context. I've seen this before. Like, I've seen this in my day and age, or I recognize this as human behavior because I've seen humans behave in this way. And, and I will say it is the compliment I will give to the Tom Cruise War of the Worlds, that there are parts of that book that are parts of that film that are very reminiscent of the book. And that when I saw the film, I happened to see the film before I listened to the book, that I went, that is a very interesting examination of how humans would respond to something like this, to this situation. And to me, it kind of hit once I was hearing it in the book, going, this is universal. This is, yet again, this isn't like, oh, this was olden days. This is how this is somebody many years ago still asking questions of human existence and behavior and theorizing in a fictional setting how that would be. And I think that's why War of the Worlds in some ways has had staying power. Now, of course, there's also the radio production, Orson Welles, and also the broader impact of that, I don't know if you all know about it, but when the radio production happened, one of the notorious things is some people believed the radio production.
Yep, I know it.
Place. So, like, yeah. And so, that, of course, became kind of a cultural phenomenon there. But again, it's a fascinating thing to me that story has been retold many ways and many times. And I think it's the human element.
There is... It reminds me of that L.P. Hartley quote from The Go-Between. I don't know if y'all know if it's from that, but you've probably heard it before. The past is another country. They do things differently there, I think is the quote. And the thing that occurs to me is, okay, I will give you the idea, Hartley, that the past is another country. But here's the thing about other countries. When you boil it down to it, everyone is the same. Even between countries, we're all the same. Like, the differences are superficial. Maybe there are different practices. Maybe they may do things a little differently there. But largely, they're doing the same things as people in other countries are. We want to kind of, like, Liz, the point you're basically getting at is, like, we want to think at times that people are so different by time and space separation. But the reality is, when you look at us day to day, the things we care about, the things we do, the things we need, it's just people. And people
What's that Civil War story of the two Yeah. Well, it's like that Civil War story of the two soldiers meeting in the night and sharing a fire and talking and conversing with each other, only to hit morning light and realize one was Union, one was Confederacy. Also, the stories you hear from the trench warfare during World War I.
Yes, the Christmas truce.
Soldiers coming out of the trench. Yeah, the Christmas truce, where, yeah, we're enemies and tomorrow we're probably going to try to kill each other, but today we're going to have Christmas together.
And it's like,
right here.
And it's like, when you think about it, like, World War I is a perfect example of that, because it's like, not like my understanding, like, correct me if I'm wrong, World War One is not a particularly ideological war in the way that two can be argued to be. It was it was the conflict that arose out of the nesting of different alliances of the powerful. It's like, these guys didn't have ideological cause against each other. They just belong to countries where the ruling classes decided, yeah, we don't like those guys and we like these guys, and some shit popped off, and now, like, the aristocracies and the ruling classes are angry at each other, so yeah, all y'all gonna have to go in the meat grinder and solve that for us.
It was and Dan Carlin of Hardcore History has a phenomenal series where he talks about this, but it all started with a group of people who were very angry at the Archduke Franz Ferdinand, and they go and they have assassins come in, and because there's going to be like a parade, right? Yeah, and they give up because they miss the Archduke and they miss the parade. And so they go and go to a cafe and start eating like a sandwich or whatever. And then as they're eating, here comes the parade. And sure enough, the assassin who's there pulls a gun, shoots Ferdinand, shoots his wife. Both of them die. And that launches everything.
Yep.
And it causes Kaiser Wilhelm of Germany to go, I want land now.
Yep.
And I'm going to invade. And here we go. And then the rest of the world starts responding in kind, and it gets messy, all because this greedy piece of shit, this greedy emperor is like, me want land now, give me land. And it all happened because of this assassination.
The aristocracy was a mistake.
Yeah. If it wasn't for the assassination, we wouldn't even remotely be where we're at now.
Yeah.
It's insane how that one moment changed everything that rippled out afterwards in history. It's nuts.
Well, in that whole moment, I mean, when you consider too that World War One was the last war fought using traditional, I say loosely,
it's kind of the liminal
traditional warfare. Yeah, it was.
It's like it's the last
we don't
war
talk
to be
enough. I feel like we don't talk enough about
to industrialize.
Yeah, I feel like we don't talk enough about how significant World War One was culturally, and also because, quite frankly, World War One is the reason we got World War Two, and not just you called one World War One and World War Two. It's like, no, Treaty of Versailles set up the conditions that would eventually lead Germany to the rise of the Third Reich and all of that. You know.
Yeah.
So, but even outside of that, just there was a cultural impact from World War One that I think people don't talk about.
I'm curious now.
Enough.
It's like during World War One, I don't know I don't remember how involved Japan was, but I do remember that the U.S. and Japan were on the same side during World War One. So I'm curious what the after effects of World War One on Japan's colonial expansion in the intervening years between that and World War II that sets the stage for the Pacific conflict and the German and Japanese alliance during that period.
Remember, in the middle of that too, and between the two, you also had the Great Depression, which
we talk about
in the concept of the states, but it really was an international depression.
And if memory serves, I think in the drawdown, like you talked about the Rose of Versailles, not Rose of that's an anime. Got my brain. The Treaty of Versailles. God, my brain. Hey, that leads up to the French Revolution, so maybe
something in Versailles. There we go.
Yes, the Treaty of Versailles. On the Japanese side of things, if memory serves, we as in the United States had I think we put a limit on Japanese naval capacity that they were not particularly fond of, that helped plant the seeds of Japan going, fuck you, Pearl Harbor, during the lead up to our entering World War II. Just like, yeah, World War One and its after effects are really the direct domino that sets up, like, not just a single domino, multiple domino. It's one of those beautiful domino patterns, except instead of being beautiful, it's a fucking cacophony nightmare that ends in the largest genocide in human history.
It's a domino more like if you have a bunch of antique plates lined up in a shop with a bunch of antique plates, or like you have the China shop comedy of you knock over one item and it sets off a chain reaction that results in everything in that store crashing to the floor and shattering.
Yeah.
That's basically what it is.
Yeah.
It's the bookshelves in The Mummy.
Yeah.
And the pillars in The Mummy Returns.
I like how we've gone from this incredibly dark moment to comedy.
I couldn't help it. One thing results in disaster.
Abraham Lincoln himself said it over a century ago. I laugh because I must not cry. That is all. That is all.
Oh, isn't that the truth nowadays?
Yeah.
We use humor to cope.
But hey,
longevity in science fiction.
Longevity in science fiction. One thing we haven't touched
blood
on yet.
orgy.
Fucking blood.
Yep.
We're always speaking of longevity in science fiction. The fucking blood orgy. God. But
sorry, that was just going to be my.
Oh,
it's our new term for when we're so off the rails. Yep. Let's just hammer back to wherever we were.
Well, to get back onto the subject at hand, one thing we haven't really touched on. We focus a lot on franchises, and there is one more franchise thing I'd like to touch on before we do end the episode. But before we get to that, I'd like to proposition this for y'all. We've focused a lot on franchises as the method of longevity. But as I noted with Rossum's, that's a singular work. And while Rossum's isn't as well remembered today, even the type of robot that they aren't particularly remembered today. They were, when Rossum's was, an extant play coming onto the scene, introducing the concept, robots were actually like biological. They were basically, what if you made a human on an assembly line, was how Rossum's robots were. They weren't mechanical automatons in the way we think of them today. No electronics.
A little more derivative of like Frankenstein, I would say.
Frankenstein is a good analog. The replicants, the Type 6 replicants in Blade Runner are this as well. They're not, like, a lot of people think of them as mechanical and electronic androids. They're not. They're entirely biological for the ones we see in the movie, which is part of why they blend in so well. They're basically just like, we bioengineered a human that dies in 4 years and exists just to be slave labor of varying kinds.
I mean, it's the human form Cylons as well.
Yep.
In the 2004 Battlestar, it's that whole human form Cylons that becomes its own thread.
I haven't read it, but my understanding is like they can produce offspring with humans, can't they?
Well, that becomes a big thing because they're not human, and then one of them becomes pregnant, and then it's like, but wait, she's pregnant, but she's a Cylon, and she's pregnant, and so it's this whole element. It becomes a whole underlying thread because
we're all show, everything's people. It's all people.
Well, and in the show, it's a signaling thread. It's a point of controversy for the humans because, and I mean, it even becomes this whole question of terminating her pregnancy because they're afraid of it. There's that question, but it also she becomes the child Hera becomes also sort of an icon and a symbol of hope for the Cylons because she is the first born Cylon. Naturally born Cylon, essentially. Not born from technology, not replicated. She is born of basically a Cylon and a human. But so it becomes this very... everything sent... And it's one of the show's big turning points, I would say. It's the end of the first season is a big turning point of this is critically going to revolve around a child. Even though they don't make it the center of the show, but it becomes a critical point for both groups because this the concept of they're just adjusting to the fact that the Cylons are so advanced they can look like humans, but to them they're still toasters.
To
borrow their in-universe slang
their
and
slur,
derogatory. They're in-universe slur for Cylons is they're all toasters. Their way of dehumanizing what is essentially very much human. They bleed, they feel emotions, they cry, they respond. They clearly produce other things because now one's pregnant. So,
the thing that kind of reminds me of is in video games. Speaking of video game longevity, the Mega Man franchise, started in the mid '80s. I think '85, still going today. There's a new one coming out for the classic series next year. But one of the things that happens there is it's like you have the robots and androids of the classic series eventually give way to more advanced androids of the Reploids, thanks to X being the first robot that can, in that setting, that can truly think and decide for himself. And then by the Mega Man Zero series, you have kind of this racial or ethnic conflict going on between humanity and the Reploids, where due to material factors going on and the way those are being managed, and a puppeteer behind the scenes, as it's eventually revealed, like the Reploids become an oppressed class. But you have a resistance movement that's made up of a mix of humans and Reploids. And what they eventually get to is, by the successor series to that, the ZX series, one of the things they note is that the differences between humans and Reploids now, after the events of the Zero series, are beginning to diminish now, because now humans are adopting more cybernetic enhancements that extend their life, and Reploids are now taking on, are being designed and made with limited lifespans to more tightly integrate them with humans. And within the Mega Man Zero series before that, you have hints of it starting off with, there's a character, I forget his name. He's an elderly looking Reploid. He is not him, he does not naturally age, but he fell in love with a human woman. And immediately as the years went on, they realized the problem, she was going to grow old and die. He would not. But what he decided to do was that as she got older, he went and had himself rebuilt, reconfigured to age with the woman he loved. He was, even though he was this mechanical being, he was deliberately adopting these changes of age into his own body so that he could be more like the woman he loved. And I find that absolutely fascinating and beautiful. And you can, it's a little scattershot because these games aren't necessarily always coming out in chronological order, thanks to just how they were made and how the franchise has operated over the years. But eventually it culminates with the Mega Man Legends series in the timeline, where there are no humans left. In the second game, you get flashbacks to, the last human, but what we see in the game are beings called carbons. I forget their name in Japan, but the English localization used carbons. And they think of themselves as human, but they are effective, as a race, they were actually artificially created. And I think it's never really been elaborated fully upon, but the implication I think you can derive is that they're kind of the culmination of that intermingling of human and Reploid into this new integrated race. And I find that fascinating.
Yeah.
I don't know if y'all had any thoughts on that long ramble on my part, but there was one other thing.
No,
Mm-hmm.
it's interesting in that it sets up a world where like it sounds like, yeah, like humans and I guess lack of a better term, organic types can choose to eventually can choose to like
Mm-hmm.
start implementing cybernetics, which we've got that going on,
Mm-hmm.
in real life. But then you also mentioned like a robot choosing to age like a human because he's in love with one. Robots
Taking on
kind of
these
going in the other
frailties.
direction. Yeah, taking on human frailties and organic
And
frailties.
I think the thing I love
Um
so much about this is like the message that's ultimately communicated is like, and I think it's an important message, especially in this day and age, like especially what we're seeing with this country right now. With like, I say, like, I mean, to be serious for a moment, it is a campaign of ethnic cleansing going on, being carried out by our government right now against various immigrant communities. It is an explicitly white nationalist project. We're also seeing anti-Semitism on the rise as well lately, and I think that needs to be pointed out. And so to tie that all together with this,
Anti-Semitism, anti-queer, anti-trans as
anti-queer,
well.
uh,
and
to
mhm,
be clear in
mhm,
regards to the
mhm.
anti-Semitism, differentiated from the Israeli government.
Yes,
Yeah, it's the
exactly.
violence specifically talking about
Yes,
violence against Jews in America.
yeah. And to tie all this together, I think that is why, like, as a kid, as an adult, I've always loved this legacy and this lineage within the Mega Man series because what it says, even though it's, it's all silly action games at the end of the day, but there's a message that I think we can derive out of that from across this franchise, from across all of these stories, is that what we said before, no matter where you are, no matter when you are, no matter what separates you, people are people. We're all the same. The Cylons and the humans ultimately are all the same. The difference between a Cylon and a human is really no different than two people from two different countries. And
Mm-hmm.
like in another longevity thing, just I want to get this right. It's one of my absolute favorite lines. It is from the end of Ultraman Ace, and it's brought back a couple of times throughout the franchise. But when Ultraman Ace ends in the final episode, he is leaving to head back off into space. Earth is at a point where it no longer needs his aid, and he's there at the sunset, and children who have been helping him are seeing him off, and he leaves them with one final wish. It is Ace's everlasting wish, and I'm just going to quote from the English subtitles I've got here. I keep this on my phone. It means that much to me. Caring for the weak, helping each other in your times of need, becoming friends no matter where you're from. Please don't lose those feelings, even if those feelings are betrayed hundreds of times.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Powerful. Yeah. It's, I mean, again, don't lose your humanity,
Yeah.
and the world will fight against your humanity. And I think we're seeing it now.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I ended up on a thread last night.
Mm-hmm.
Not even a thread, on just was kind of doom scrolling Instagram a little bit. Ended up on an account, and just, somebody who was sharing
Mm-hmm.
videos and stories about their experience raising a, you know, severely autistic child.
Mm-hmm.
When I say the comments were atrocious, the
No.
amount of judgment, the amount of judgment, and not even judgment, the amount of dehumanizing of a child for simply being different. You know, and just that much more, you want to sit there and go, what is this loss of humanity? Why did we stop seeing people as people? Oh, thank you. Excuse me, someone was feeling needy. And I think that's something that, in the long run, that's...
Someone else is feeling
Hi,
needy.
Miles. In the long run, it is also what we see in these science fiction stories that have really, whether it's a franchise or it's a story that's been retold over and over and over again, or a series, or even reinvention, you know, I find myself coming back to, at the core for all of them, for me, is the human element. That, you know, the devotion to exploring and understanding and celebrating being human, which is also a good show.
Yeah.
I'm letting the ADD run rampant, but it's the humanity of it. And I think that's, you know, like pointing back to Doctor Who. It's why that series, in a way, has held up in its own way, even through its ups and downs in popularity and not, but why it's become iconic is, you know, is through this singular character that we've seen reinvented by so many actors, but each time exploring the humanity of this character who is not supposed to be human, but through the lens of a non-human character who essentially reinvents themselves, exploring what it is to exist in a world. Period. I mean, there is an amount of humanity. I think even talking about stage trained actors, Dave, that's what you're getting on, is that element of being able to capture humanity, you know, and through learning to adjust and adapt your performance to be big so as to fill an auditorium, but still be small, just to capture the humanity of that moment for everybody.
Yeah.
You know, no matter where you're physically sitting in the audience. So, and, you know, and E, as you mentioned with Mega Man and in games, and I mean, you know, I think that's kind of the critical element to these. Okay, thank you. Yes, I know. You're a needy puppy. Excuse me. Someone is feeling needy, therefore he licks my face and gets his bad breath in my face.
You know, I know I tend to hyperfixate on my hyperfixations. I say this as I'm surrounded by a ton of Gundam model kits in this room. But, I mean, in tying into, like, the heavy subject matter we've gotten into, and especially, like folks, as we're recording this, I feel that it is kind of important to point out that as we're recording this, we are on the day that the U.S. and Israel have launched joint strikes on Iran. The Ayatollah has been reported as dead. I know there have been reports that a girls' elementary school has been struck by our forces and has claimed the lives of, I think, 50 people when I last heard the reports. And I've seen reports now that Iran is retaliating, not directly against us at the moment, but at U.S. related sites and U.S. allies in the region, UAE and other areas, I believe. A lot of this, like, and especially when we talk about, like, the people in the comments that Liz mentioned, treating that disabled child or that autistic child so carelessly, so shittily, so inhumanly.
It was a scale beyond disgusting.
Yeah.
I had to stop looking at the account because there were people who I could swear were on campaigns.
Yeah.
And just
it can feel
awful.
Hopeless. It can feel like there's so little redemption for humanity. And to bring this into the realm that we're talking about here with science fiction, I think science fiction is a powerful and beautiful tool for building empathy and for being a guide, a way we guide others. Like, so much media I think we can take sometimes as being disposable fun times that we escape into. And yes, science fiction media can be that, but these are also stories that have messages we want to say, even in some of the most crass and commercial aspects of it. We can find these messages there. Like I talked before about Gundam. Gundam, as far as the producers on the sponsor committee or the sponsors on the production committee were concerned, it was a vehicle to sell toys. They didn't care what Yoshiyuki Tomino and company named the shit in the show, named the characters in the show, as long as it fucking sold the toys. And but at the same time, there are amazing messages there. With Gundam, one of the things I think that's led to its longevity is when it got long in the tooth with its setting, and Bandai became the major sponsor. Bandai being the ones who make the model kits, make most of the toys, make most of the games, if not all of the game. Well, Banpresto is technically a division of Bandai, but still. And like they weren't going to let that go. So what they envisioned is instead of hewing to this one continuity, they spun off new alternative continuities, quote unquote AU, alternate universes. So like the now much maligned term in American media critique, the multiverse. But so they had this way of, and I promise I am going to tie this all together. It's one of my long-winded moments, I know. But so what they had was they started doing these alternative continuities. And then that helped keep things afloat. It made things fresh for new audiences to come in and be able to get into stories without having all of these decades of continuity they had to keep up with. And that's a powerful tool for getting more people to view these stories and internalize the messages of them. And then in 1999, they got Tomino back to do another Gundam series. He had not been on a Gundam project since the particularly not well regarded, because it is such a dark show, Victory Gundam. My understanding is it was kind of like at the height of Tomino's own personal depression, and exacerbated to no end by the fact that that production was the year that Bandai bought Sunrise, the studio that produced Gundam. So the sponsors became his direct bosses instead of his sponsors. So
that's not fun.
But Tomino brought to the table one of the best, if not to this day, the best, in my opinion, Gundam story, Turn A Gundam, which is a story where Earth has been regressed to about 1900s level society globally. But there are still people living on the moon who have not been to Earth in centuries. And they can't continue staying there because of just the conditions of, living on the moon. Most people apparently live in and out of cryogenic stasis, basically, in between bouts of being awake and active. And it is a story basically about the reintegration of the quote-unquote moon race and the people of Earth as one people again. And there is a lot of ethnic conflict that arises out of that. And it's an absolutely beautiful and hopeful story that we can overcome these divides that either we establish between ourselves, or that we are, more often than not, that we are taught to establish between each other by institutions and leaders that we perceive as bigger than ourselves, that tell us how we're supposed to think and feel. And I think the message there is beautiful. I watched this during Trump's first term, so already a lot of the anti-immigrant animus was coming to the fore then when I'm watching this. And there's a scene with Lauren Sehak, who is the main character. He is moon race. He comes from the moon. He is actually part of the first wave of the teams being sent to see if like they can live on Earth again. And no one on Earth knows that he is actually from the moon. They think he's just another regular person from Earth. And things are coming to a head between this farmer family that's immigrated from the moon back to Earth and the people on Earth or who've been like there from birth, where they're trying to drive them out. They see them as an invasive force. They haven't taken anyone's land. They haven't, like, these people are integrating. They're just normal immigrants. They're not colonizers. But the community that's there is beginning to harass them and is starting to get violent. And Lauren can't take it anymore. And he outs himself, even to his friends who didn't know at the time, that he's a member of the moon race. And I forget the exact line, but what he says is like that he is willing to fight anyone who will not respect the sanctity of human life, and he will fight to defend the sanctity of that life, no matter who opposes it, be they of the earth or of the moon. And it's just this amazing moment. And fast forward to 2019, I think this was around the time I was watching the show. For one of Gundam's anniversaries, they produce a short film called Light of Life Chronicle UC, which basically chronicles everything up to that point. And they have two of the characters from the original UC continuity, Amuro and Lala, watching on as these kind of psychic ghosts over the world as an element from from Turn A Gundam occurs, where the entire the entire planet is cocooned over in what seems like this just giant mass of destruction by the Gundam. And Amuro is watching all of this and has seen the all of the like no matter how many centuries pass, thousands of years pass, humanity keeps descending into war after war, killing after killing. And he's watching this and he says that was probably the only good deeds that humans showed to the world. Falling into this despair as then Lala appears beside him and tells him, "You're being impatient, Amuro," calling back to something he once told Char before the two of them passed from the world. And what she reveals to him is that the cocooning that was done was not destroying the world. It was the thing that revitalized it. And that the reason it happened was that... Okay, I'm trying to phrase this without sounding too ridiculous, but the Turn A Gundam is what they would call a new type suit. It connects to the psychic resonance of human beings. And what it's framed as within this short film is it effectively answered humanity's call to repair the world. That the collective voices of humanity, despite all the war, despite all of the destruction, the collective voice of humanity was, we want to live together. We want our world restored. And it answered that it may have been a destructive process in destroying much of the industrialization that had paved the way for war to be as huge and as terrible as it was, and that had destroyed and poisoned the planet so much with all of the ravages that had been done. And God, I'm hearing my voice now as I'm saying this. I'm getting kind of choked up. But at the end of the day, what humanity called out for, despite all of the pain, despite all of the hatred and the animus and the utterly overwhelming sense that, like, can we come back from this? Is there anything worth salvaging about us in all of this? What humanity's voice was the hope to live together in peace. And that's, I think, what attests to the longevity of this work, is that it calls out to the better part of ourselves, the part that doesn't want to give up, the part that doesn't want to succumb to the nihilism of the violence and the dehumanization, the part of us that says that we can even use our sadness to light the way, to be hope, and to create a better world. Boy, that's a lot of quiet right now.
I was going to say, so I didn't realize my mic was, because Seamus was being
okay.
weird, and so I turned my mic off
no
so that I could try to get his attention, and
No
then
worries.
just realized that I'm like, I was saying deep breath.
Oh, yeah.
I can't think of a better way to cap off this episode than that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I think
yeah.
Yeah. There is... Have hope, people.
Yeah, have
hope is important.
Have hope. So,
and now the dog is settled and not trying to paw at the sandbag, which is why I was distracted momentarily and turned my mic off, because he, for some reason, thinks there is something behind the sandbag that is bracing one of the lights and is like, you must get at it. And I'm like, don't you dare. Don't you dare. Because if you break that sandbag, I have to clean it up.
Oh, boy.
Yeah. It's a very weirdly balanced light, so there's a sandbag on the bottom to hold it in place.
Well, hey, we're a weirdly balanced show, so it works.
Speaking of our show,
yeah,
where can our Voidwalkers find us if they wish to leave us a comment, ask a question, give us some of your perspective on the things we've talked about?
I believe we have an email for that.
Oh, we do.
The Confabulators at gmail.com. You can see it on the screen right next to us. Why am I singing this?
It just came.
Moment of musical inspiration. Also, don't forget that we are also on Twitch, Confabulation Station on Twitch. Mm-hmm. We occasionally will stream. We'll be having more going eventually.
Yep.
As we get further into this season. Don't worry, folks. We got plans. But please, folks, please. Comment, follow, subscribe, review, listen on whatever podcast platform you use. Tell your friends, spread the word, shout it in the corners. Okay, maybe be careful about shouting in street corners, depending on how they might respond.
Rip this episode off of YouTube or off of or the audio version and put it on a thumb drive. Leave the thumb drive out. I'm sure someone will take that and plug that into the computer.
Mm-hmm. And we're not making any money off this, folks, so go ahead and do that.
Yeah. It would be nice.
No, don't worry. Yeah. We're not monetized though, so spread the word. Infect your friends. Tie them to a chair and make them listen to it.
Let them know what's up.
Maybe don't tie them to a chair, but bribe them.
What if they like being tied to chairs?
All that good stuff.
Whatever kinks you have are your kinks, and I will not fault you for their kinks as long as they do not cause unwanted harm to others. Otherwise, be kinky. I have a good friend who has forever infected my brain with his thing that he used to say, that he picked up saying to people because he liked to be, as we called, a lovable asshole to people. And sometimes people would look at him and be like, bite me. And his answer, beautiful response to it, hard or kinky?
Yep.
To which usually left them going, oh, God damn it.
Exactly.
But hey, while we're not streaming on our collective account at the Confabulation Station, I think they can find y'all and myself elsewhere on the internet too. So hey, Dave, Liz, where can they find y'all?
Well, as for me, y'all can find me at twitch.tv/sheriff_Flynn. Right now, it's kind of an under construction sort of thing. I got a few things going on that I'm still working on, so I haven't been streaming lately, but I am trying to get back on that horse. I do miss it a lot, and I still owe a lot of Nazis some beatdowns. So there's
Wolfenstein!
Yep. And of course, I'm going to try eventually to start uploading to YouTube once I get back into Twitch. So you can find me at Sheriff Flynn on YouTube. Liz, how about yourself? Where can our lovely Voidwalkers find you?
I can be found also on Twitch and on YouTube, though there's not as much on YouTube. I've been migrating content over, but right now you won't see much over there. But on both as Lady Hyacinth 57, that's Lady Hyacinth as in the flower 57. You can find me under that handle at Twitch, and you can also find me under that handle on YouTube. And like I said, I'm moving some VODs and stuff over just to kind of make it a backup place for Twitch, but haven't then. By the time this comes out, I will say this, by the time this episode is released, I will have finished playing my first run of Resident Evil Requiem. Right now, I have not. And I play a lot of Resident Evil, but we're not going to be playing. We're going to be taking a break from Resident Evil, maybe. After. I do play a lot of Resident Evil, but once I finish with my run of Requiem, I'm so happy.
Congratulations, by the way, on completing your road to Requiem.
Yes!
Yeah, congratulations.
Yes, Road to Requiem. I did not. I came surprisingly close to the combined 24-hour goal, which was the ultimate goal. I would say I came astoundingly close, because the overarching was at least all 8 main chapter games, so 1 through 8, with in-game times, combined in-game play time of 36 hours or less. I did it in under 28, and I think I allowed myself one mulligan run, which I did for Resident Evil 4, because that was the longest run. That one was a little over 6.5 hours, which was a huge improvement, because the prior run that I had just done on my own was 15 hours, and I've only played, that was literally like the 4th time I played it when I did the speed run. So then I did it completely again last week, beginning to end, and I actually cut another 40 minutes off my run time. So, yay! So I think I actually managed to do 1 through 8 in a combined 27 hours. So I guess next year I have to do them all in 24 and Requiem.
Nope. Yarp.
But yes, so I play a lot of Resident Evil. If I'm not playing Resident Evil, there's Evil Within, there's other horror games. I've got a long list of games to catch up on, because now that Diva 2.0 is in action and Diva Bot has been scrapped and retired, I can now play a bunch of these games that I've had to hold off on, because Diva Bot went, no.
Which means now we just have to raise you the funds to get you a Sendin light gun so you can play Resident Evil Survivor.
I was going to say raise the funds so I can make Diva 2.0 even better. But that's my vote.
A light gun that works with your computer monitor does make Diva Bot better. It expands her capability.
But I will make Diva even better. She struggled a tiny bit on Requiem on performance, I noticed with the stream, but still, the amount she would have... DivaBot would not have it all. No. DivaBot would have been like, no, this is not happening. DivaBot would have been like, bye-bye.
And that game runs on a Switch, too.
All right. Now that I've sidetracked enough, where can I... Words are tired. Wow.
You can find me over here in the Conan O'Brien studio.
I was trying to say words are complicated, and instead I said words are tired.
I love that only half of, I know we've got the Audacity audio, but I love that on the Discord call half of that sentence did not come through because you're pitching out. That's pitching with a B or with a P, folks. Not God damn it! I used up all of my words on that very serious thing about Gundam and humanity and hope and the terrors of the world. Boy.
My words have just jumped ship entirely.
We're 3 hours and 20 minutes into this episode. You can find me at Lanzalencia on Twitch and YouTube. LANZALENTZIA. So, I haven't streamed for a bit because I've been having, as of this recording, I've been having chronic pain issues. So the time I normally stream, I have not been streaming. At some point soon, I'm going to get back on. Hopefully, by the time you're hearing this, I will have been back on and hopefully finished with, Xenosaga. So hopefully
that is. I need you to understand right now.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, sorry. So I need you to understand right now. If anybody watching the video is going, the fuck is Liz being all distracted about now? You probably can't see it in the video, but Potato right there, with his head.
I
on
just
his ramp.
You're gonna have to turn the camera, unfortunately, because to make this.
Look at the potato right there.
Oh. I see a dog.
Yeah, I sorry, E. Sorry to distract E.
No, I got it in. Oh, there he is. There. Oh, cute.
I know. I do closer up.
Yeah, the light balance was not good on that webcam. he was in darkness.
No, I know.
It was like some blue patches and a bit of white, so very abstract dog.
My ambient lighting was taking over, but I looked over and he's got his head on his own ramp that he has because he's got arthritic hips, and lately he's been looking at the couch and looking at me like, "Are you gonna make me get up there on my own?" And it's like, "Well, you're 50 pounds. I can't pick you up every time." Potato pupper.
Potato party.
Sorry, I distracted us.
Potato party. Oh, hey, we're wrapping up
folks,
anyway.
That was who you were seeing the potato earlier in stream. He needed love and attention, so
yes.
I gave him love and attention. Sometimes we all just need some love and attention.
Mm-hmm.
Also, hey, one last shout out for a longevity thing we didn't get to talk about this time. I just want to shout it out: The Twilight Zone, which I need to see more of.
Oh yeah, I haven't. That's still on my watch list of like some of the old and some of the new, and then probably Black Mirror as Twilight Zone influenced.
Oh yeah.
Just saying, folks.
3 hours, folks.
By the way,
there's a lot to delve into in this world.
Yeah. By the way, folks, tell us what your favorite long-standing science fiction is. Whether it's a story that's been retold over and over and over, and you just can't get over it. Like you love all the retellings of X story, or series or franchise that's been on longer than you've been alive.
Or even if it's just a singular work that's just managed to stand the test of time. Like we used the phrase Orwellian earlier. We're referencing 1984. That's just a singular book, but it is distressingly relevant in our society at the moment.
Yeah. What is your War of the Worlds story that has just boom? Although that has been retold, but also it's still mostly the same story.
A tale of souls and swords, eternally retold. Welcome back to the stage of history. That's more for the fantasy season.
Caliber.
Oh my gosh. We're so ADD.
Yes, we are. Well, hey, we needed that decompression after our tour through the terrors of the world, so.
Yes, yeah. Take care of yourselves, folks. We don't say it as much on here because the way our discussions are, but we do want to also say that your health is your wealth, and that includes mental health, folks. So we know shit is hitting the fan practically
Every day.
Every time you blink, yeah, every day, every minute, every hour, it feels like it's happening all the time, folks. So amidst all of this, folks, we do say, I'm going to quote another influencer here. I cannot remember his name, but it's the one phrase of his that I remember all the time. Find your joy. Find your joy. Find the joy in the little things.
And hey,
find the joy in the little things. Stand by each other. Lean into your communities. I have a wonderful community out here, and then of course I have my wonderful remote community that includes Dave and E.
Yep.
You all are my community that is not local to me.
And you know what?
But
I can quote someone as well. It's like the late Fred Rogers. When you're despairing in times like this, there's a thing he said to do, and that's look for the helpers. And no matter how bleak things get, there's always someone out there helping.
And for some of you folks, that may even mean being the helpers.
Yeah.
So just know that sometimes it's showing somebody that they feel seen.
Yeah.
You can even use sadness as fuel to light the way.
Check in on your people, especially your people who are if you know somebody who maybe is, particularly affected by all this check in on them. Make sure they're okay.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. All right.
Here's to you Voidwalkers out there. We love you and appreciate you all.
Yes.
And until next time. Now that I change my tone absurdly.
What is a confabulator?
I'm Dave.
And I'm E. And what is a confabulator?
Ask Mr. Rogers.
Yeah. I think he'd have a really good answer for that.
Oh, time to get the Ouija board out.
I knew something was coming. Time for a seance! The most wholesome seance ever.
Yes.
Wholesome seance. Holmans. That just sounds weird.
Until next time, folks.
Voidwalkers. Peace out.
Later.
The Confabulators is hosted by Liz Strauss and David Bockenkamp. Editor is E.W. Klein. Theme music is Oh Heavens by Cassidy B. Composer and artist, cbrva.card.co.